is required by law. We will have public comment tonight in person and remotely. We're using Zoom webinar for meetings, which allows for the public to participate in the meeting as an attendee. Couple housekeeping things. Anybody who's a panelist, please turn your camera off until your agenda item comes up. That's helpful. Thank you. And attendees versus whoever's who's sitting here at 4FG here at the public safety facility. I will try my best to, whoever puts the hand up first in front of me or online, I'll try to keep that order, keep that queue proper. So all set there. We'll call to order the April 13th, 2022 Select Board meeting to order. There's no changes to the agenda. Announcements, Libby?
Thank you. This meeting is being video and audio recorded, and our first other real announcement is Nantucket Lights request for proclamation declaring April 22nd through 30th International Dark Sky Week. Gail, I see that you are on remote, and I didn't have a chance to touch base with you about this, but typically when the way these proclamations go is maybe you can read an excerpt from your letter, which is in the board's packet, and then the board can read the proclamation and endorse it.
Okay, thanks, Libby. Will do. So yes, I am Gail Walker, and I'm representing Nantucket Lights, a citizen advocacy group that was founded last year that is exclusively dedicated to preserving Nantucket's dark skies. International Dark Sky Week is coming up April 22nd through the 30th, and Nantucket Lights has asked the Select Board to adopt a proclamation in support of that. Reading from my letter, International Dark Sky Week is a global initiative of the International Dark Sky Association to celebrate the night sky, raise awareness about light pollution, and promote the use of environmentally responsible outdoor lighting. This year, the dates for it are April 22nd through the 30th. A proclamation by the Select Board declaring those dates to be International Dark Sky Week on Nantucket would be a great way to show its support for preserving our dark skies. Several cities and towns have already adopted similar proclamations. The one adopted by the city of Reno, Nevada, was attached as an example to my letter. I'll just add that in the last few days, even more cities, towns, and even some states have adopted declarations along the lines that we are proposing. Most recently, the state of Arizona, the state of Virginia, and the city of Falls Church, Virginia. I guess, I said our letter ends, for our part, we will be coordinating some awareness events that week in partnership with the Maria Mitchell Association. We would love to be able to point to a proclamation by the Select Board when we promote these events. We have, since the letter, announced our joint initiative, which is called Nantucket Star Count. And I encourage anybody listening to participate in that event. Information can be found on our website, which is nantucketlights.org. And now I understand I should read the proclamation that's proposed. So I'll do that. I believe it's going to be shown on a screen. So the language we're proposing would be, whereas the beauty of the natural night sky is a part of Nantucket's heritage and culture that should be protected and preserved. And whereas the excessive use of artificial light at night, also known as light pollution, masks the beauty of the natural night sky and also has significant adverse impacts on our health and quality of life. And whereas Nantucket is home to dozens of nocturnal as well as non-nocturnal wildlife species, plants and insects that need a natural night environment to thrive. And whereas Nantucket is home to the revered observatories of the Maria Mitchell Association, whose astronomy research is hindered by light pollution. And whereas light pollution wastes energy, a precious commodity on Nantucket. And whereas the International Dark Sky Association has created International Dark Sky week to celebrate the night sky, raise awareness about light pollution, and promote the use of environmentally responsible outdoor lighting around the world. Now, therefore, we, the Nantucket Select Board, hereby declare April 22nd through the 30th, 2022, to be International Dark Sky Week on Nantucket, and call upon residents to commit to increasing awareness and understanding of light pollution and the steps that each of us can take to protect and preserve our dark skies. Thank you for considering our request, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Gail. I think we might like to make a motion to accept that proclamation.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor by roll call. Dawn,
Aye.
Christy,
Aye.
Matt,
Aye.
Melissa,
Aye.
Jason, aye. Gail, that proclamation is accepted, and we support your initiatives. Thank you for all the work you're doing.
Thank you very much. And Jason, just to make sure I have permission, am I allowed to share this on social media and with the International Dark Sky Association?
Of course, it's a public record. Share it.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Gail.
Bye.
Thank you, Gil. Town offices will be closed this coming Monday, April 18th, in observance of Patriots Day. There's no board meeting next Wednesday, April 20th. And the Finance Committee is sponsoring an annual town meeting public informational session. This will be held on Tuesday, April 26th at 5 p.m. It will be on Zoom. The information is online and also shown here on this agenda. And this is a chance for people to come in and ask the Finance Committee questions about motions, comments, any of the warrant articles. And that's it.
Thank you, Libby. There's no follow-up on comments from prior select board meetings. Is there any public comment tonight that is not on the agenda? Oh, sorry. Yep, good.
Bob DeCosta, just a quick comment. The last couple of days, the Shellfish Association had some handful of boats moving sea to Maticat. We moved quite a bit of sea, but we used the new ramp and boat. I call it Walter Barrett Pier, so I'm not sure if that's the right term for it, but and it works great. They did a great job with it. Just one small thing. So on the boat ramp, there used to be 3 pilings along the side of the boat ramp along the steel bulkhead. When they put it back in, they only put one on the very end. So, which is great because it gives more room for the boats. But the problem is when you launch your boat, there's no place to tie the boat to and it drifts away. So if they could either weld a couple cleats or attach a couple cleats halfway along that, it would make it a lot easier to launch boats in and out. But otherwise, they did a phenomenal job with the new floats, everything. It's really great. So electric company was there today hooking up the lights and everything. So it's going to be a great improvement for the summer. I appreciate the town getting it all done before the summer season. Thanks.
Thank you, Bobby. Any other comments for items not on the agenda? Okay. No new business that I know of. Is there a motion for approval of minutes of April 6th? Sorry about that.
So
And
moved.
treasury warrants for April 13th.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor by roll call. Don,
Aye.
Christy,
Aye.
Matt,
Aye.
Melissa,
Aye.
Jason, aye. That motion passes. Both of those pass 5-0. Citizen Department Committee request National Grid review of plans for L1 feeder project. I'm not sure who's here for National Grid. Erica?
I can introduce them.
Sure.
So we've got Bill Sioka. We've got actually a really large team from National Grid. We've got Bill Sioka, Daniel Eretz, Adam Wilding, Joe Henry, Fabio Santos, Steve Holgate, Josh Reynolds, Mike Monsieur, and then we have Eric Sear. And so I'm not sure who's going to start us off with National Grid. Danielle looks like she is. So I'm just going to bring the presentation up online and then Danielle, you can start.
Thank you. Just want to make sure you can all hear me. So if you just want to do like a thumbs up. Awesome.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you very much. So I wanted to just take a moment to thank you all for inviting us to be here this evening to discuss the L1 feeder project. And as soon as that PowerPoint comes up, there we go. So this evening, like Erica had mentioned, we have William Sioka, who's the customer and community manager for National Grid for Nantucket. We have myself. I am the lead stakeholder management representative for this project. Adam Wilding, who's the project manager. Joe Henry, who is the distribution planning engineer. Fabio Santos, who's the distribution design engineer. Steve Holdgate, who's Nantucket operations supervisor. Josh Reynolds, the distribution construction supervisor. Mike Massour, who is stakeholder relations. He's going to be helping Bill and myself throughout this project. So if we can go to the next slide. Quick overview of the agenda. So I will be going over a project history, description, and need, and then I'll turn it over to Adam to discuss the L1 scope overview, substation scope, and the public way scope, as well as some proposed schedule, and then I'll take over outreach and any questions that may come up from that. Next slide. So this slide gives you a bird's eye view of the project area. The solid blue lines indicate the existing underground duct bank. The red lines are going to denote where we want to install new duct bank. The white dots that you see, and it might be a little bit difficult, but the white dots indicate existing manholes. The orange dots are, the yellow dots are new manholes that would be installed as part of this project. And the orange ones indicate manholes that need to be enlarged for this project. So if we want to go to the next slide, I can kind of give a quick project history, description, and need. So National Grid continuously is evaluating opportunities to enhance the reliability of our delivery networks. And this project would strengthen the reliability of Nantucket's downtown reliability by incorporating the following upgrades and installations. So we would create a new loop system in the downtown area, which would improve switching capability and allow backfeeds, which creates redundancy in the system. Again, this would also minimize downtown outages. Currently, there is no contingency. It's all, it's just one line. And if there would be an outage in the downtown area, that whole area would remain without power until we were able to solve the issue where by having a loop system, we could isolate different areas. It also creates new ties to the L2 and the L4 distribution lines, and it would also raise the switchgear at the substation to meet new flood mitigation requirements. So I stated some of the purposes and their benefits, tying them together, but the basic message on this is that it would, we're looking at being proactive to be able to address outages due to, possibilities of storms, of flooding, if there was a switchgear failure or any kind of outage in the downtown area, we would be able to restore power quickly to areas that would not be impacted or could not be impacted by that, ensuring that we can kind of isolate and focus on the problem versus having a widespread outage throughout the downtown. This also will provide additional backup capacity for the L2 and the L4 feeders for Nantucket. So with my very quick project need and description, I'm going to hand it over to Adam to go over more of the detailed in the scope for the project.
All right, thank you, Danielle. All right, so just going into the scope overview details, I'll just kind of read through what we have here for the civil construction. It will include approximately 1,600 linear feet of new duct bank, ranging from 2 5-inch to 14 5-inch. There will be 12 new manholes, of which it's actually should say 4 are within the substation, and the remaining are outside of the station. The elevated the elevated metal platform for the switch gears, which are being relocated, 2 heavy-duty pull boxes, removal and demo of the 3 concrete foundations where the current switch gears are sitting, and 5 manhole enlargements. So a total of 12 manholes, 5 which would be enlarged. The underground line construction is approximately 5,000 linear feet of underground cable pulling, and the overhead line is very minimal. It would just be, I believe, 3 pole replacements with Verizon and some miscellaneous overhead work. Go ahead to the next slide. So this slide we put together just to show where the substation is and the scope associated with that. So highlighted in yellow is the Candle Street substation, just highlighting where the conduits would be going, and kind of where you see the 3 lines in parallel or dots in parallel. That's where the elevated switchgear will be. Also included some of the approvals that we received over the past couple of years for this project. The planning board, HDC, Chapter 91, which was the big one. It took a while to get that one, but we have all the approvals in place, including the Concom as well. Next slide. All right, so the street public way scope, this will likely be where the most interest is, of course, with the town and all the public, the work within the street. So highlighted in yellow are all the open cut locations. Again, it doesn't include the existing infrastructure, just showing where we are proposing to open the road. The Concom also applies to this area of work, and the town select board grant of location petition is the approval that we understand we need to secure before proceeding with this work. And this presentation today is one of the various the steps in following to get the eventual approval. So the purpose of this again today, as Danielle mentioned, was to bring the town select board and all those in attendance just more information on our project. So we can go to the next slide, please, Erica. So schedule, and I know, Erica, we spoke about this a bit over the past couple of weeks, but the plan is to avoid the summer months, knowing that it is obviously Nantucket. Tourist season is critical. We understand that. We want to work with the town and obviously all the residents, businesses, etc., to work around the summer months. So what we're proposing currently is the months of March to June. And again, sorry, I should take a step back. The work is proposed to start next March 2023. So we'd be proposing March through June of 23, and then continuing October through December. Go ahead to the next slide, please. And again, this touches on the outreach, so I can hand it back over to yourself, Danielle, if you want to take the slide.
Thanks, Adam. So for outreach for this project, we have a pretty comprehensive plan that we are going to be putting in place, most of it heavily focusing on proactive outreach to businesses in the downtown, residents in the downtown, as well as working with Nantucket's operations leadership so that we are having people understand the need for the project and the benefits, but also working with their schedules to try and be as least impactful as we can be with a project like this. So we want to partner with key businesses and community organizations, various boards that, again, play integral parts, integral roles with Nantucket. We would be doing door-to-door outreach, one-on-one meetings, listening sessions so that we can really ask for feedback so that we can continue to communicate in ways that work for everybody down in Nantucket. We do have an email address and a phone hotline, as well as a web page, which we'll be updating and making sure that current information is available to anyone that goes to the website. We will provide updates via local publications, and we'll be participating in Nantucket events to continue to educate the public on this project. So that's our outreach plan in a nutshell. Again, it's flexible and it's created so that we do have that constant back and forth and feedback, and we'll adjust as needed. So with that, here's our contact information. Please, we invite people to really reach out to us with their questions, comments, concerns. The best outreach plans are ones that we can build together with members of the public. So with that, I'd like to open it up to any questions from the board or the public. Thank you.
Any thoughts from the board? Matt?
Yeah. Will any of this be making it worse on the sidewalks? May any of it be furthering any encroachments, et cetera? It'll all be flush?
So I can take that, or Danielle, did you want to speak to it? So basically the intent is everything will be replaced in kind. So there are some locations where the getaways will be just along right by the sidewalk, or up on, like, obviously the cobblestone, but the intent is whether it's brick, sidewalk, cobblestone, grass, whatever we are going through, the intent is to replace in kind.
You good, Matt?
I think so.
Okay.
So the answer is no, there won't be any further encroachment or anything like that.
When you say encroachment, can you detail that a little bit more?
Danielle, I think this is Erica. I think I know what Matt's referring to. Right now, we've got some of the manholes that are within the project layout are slated to be expanded. And so that area of the sidewalk will be impacted, where the brick's going to have to come out, the roadway's going to have to come out. They're going to expand that manhole. But when they put it all back together, it should pretty much be like it was. The manhole itself, Adam, is it a little bit bigger, or is it the same size? Like the cover that we see in the sidewalk?
Yeah, what you see, the finished product will be the same. The actual cover itself within the roadway will be the same size. Underneath
So it's all the infrastructure underneath.
Correct.
Right.
Which will be enlarged. Yep.
Right. If it's all flush and it's not making it worse, some of the sidewalks are pretty tight as it is, then I'm fine with it.
Yes, it would be flush. The manhole covers would be flush. They're not going to be, and they stay about the same size.
Hello, Erica. This is Bill Ciocca. Can you hear me?
I can, Bill.
Yes, I just want to let the board know that we as a company did our due diligence in trying our best to secure and put out for bid directional drilling, which came back the same answer, not doable. So it was our intent from the beginning to do the directional drilling as much as we possibly could, but when all the bids came back on a negative note, we ended up having to do the open trench. It wasn't our goal, it wasn't our proposed plan, because I know we came to you first and explained that we were proposing to do this project, and our intent was to do it with a directional drill, but it's not feasible. Just want the board to know that, that's all.
Thank you. Can we go to Mary Longacre? She has her hand up.
Thank you very much. So I understand from conversations with the town's energy coordinator that there is a cap on the amount of solar power that National Grid can accept into the grid from local generation. I saw on your benefits, it says allows back feeds. I wasn't sure if that's related to solar power. So please, first, correct me on the first statement if it's not right. Explain a little bit more about what allow backfeeds means. And then in general, if you can comment, does this project increase our capacity locally to generate power and feed it back into the grid?
Sure. So regarding anything having to do with solar and having the interconnections with solar, that's a completely separate issue, and I can get the right people to provide answers on solar capacity, and that whole kind of process. That's unfortunately that's not my area of expertise, so I don't want to give any wrong information. Regarding the backfeed and that part of your question, I have Joe Henry, who is our planning engineer. I think Joe Henry can probably clarify that for you. Joe, are you?
Yes,
still-
can you guys
Perfect.
hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, even on the first question, it will not provide any more distributed generation capacity or solar capacity. So it's more of a capacity for backup, basically. So when I say backup, we can back up the other feeder. So say one feeder we can have a cable fault from the station to the first pole. We have to completely switch that circuit to another circuit while we make the repairs. The repairs could take multiple days. So these new ties will allow us to easily pick up those circuits while we're making our repairs. That's what we mean by backup.
Does that make sense? Or would you like us to figure out another way to answer it?
I think if that's not sufficient for Mary, she will send you, she will probably contact you. I'm knowing Mary, she will send you an email and call you for more information.
Yeah, absolutely. We're
Okay.
happy to fish out information and provide the correct person to speak to, especially about things like solar and DG projects or inquiries.
Eric, if you could chime in, I know you've been working on this for a while, trying to figure out how to not disrupt everything. Can you just let everybody know how much you're working on it and how you're kind of approaching it?
Sure. So we've known about the L1 since we've heard about the L8. So it's been a little while. Sorry, something just weird popped up. But it had been in the future. So we were contacted recently by National Grid saying that this is really coming up now. We had a good meeting with some department staff in March, based on, and I'm just giving you a little background real quick, based on some of the public feedback we got with L8. I wanted to get this in front of everyone as quickly as possible, just to give everyone a heads up. So of course, this area is right in the middle of our transportation area downtown. The buses are down there. We've got the truck traffic to the Steamship Authority. And so the potential for disruption is huge. So one of the things that I've been working on with National Grid is we're doing this as a night job, which isn't ideal for them. But I think, especially coming off of COVID, where businesses, lost a lot of business, the fact that we would have to completely reroute the truck traffic, but still make accommodations for house moves because they can't go out of town the reverse truck route way because they can't make the corners. Plus, where would we put our transportation hub for the NRTA? We're really pushing for this to be a night job. And so I know there's going to be some issues with some residents there, but I personally believe that the impacts at night will be less than they potentially could be during the day for everyone. I mean, this would impact the entire community, the entire island. So that's one of the things we've been working on. I'm sure you remember we did an MOU with National Grid for L8. We also did one with Verizon for the trussing project. We will be doing one for this project as well, just so everything is outlined and everybody knows, what the expectations are. I think with the L8 project, National Grid did a really good job adhering to the MOU that we had in place. And again, this does have the potential to be impactful, but we're going to work with them about making sure that all the roadways are clear for passage during the day. That may include leaving plates on the roadways and things like that. But we deal with that all over the island. So, and we will be working. I'll be working really closely with them for the next year until this starts.
Thank you. Bobby?
Thank you, Jason. Just a quick comment. I see that, this is going to interrupt the Washington Street extension across town and then back across the other way. And if there's any way that they can coordinate at least the Washington Street part of it, where it goes across by the Stop and Shop and through Easy Street to the spring months and not the fall. As you well are aware, October, not so much October, but November, December is scallop season. It's prime scallop season. You're going to have anywhere from 10 to 20 boats that are trailering to Children's Beach every morning to launch. Quite a few of the scallop fleet trailer their boats each day. And if they can't go that route, it's quite a bit of a inconvenience. If it's at all possible to do that section in the spring when there's not that many boats trailing, or at least, May and June, it does get busy again when everyone starts to launch their boats. But, ideally, if we could do that section in the spring, I'm happy to hear that they're going to try to do most of it at night, because it's very simple to drop a couple of steel plates over the hole and we can drive our boats over them. But it's a big deal to go the alternate truck route all the way around to Children's Beach. And it's the only boat ramp we have. So if that's possible, it'd be great. Thank you.
So that's exactly information that is super helpful to know. And one of the things that myself and my team have been doing is kind of also going through and talking to Erica and making sure that we're accounting for all of the events that go on in the downtown area, but also island wide, so that we're aware of, either a big event coming up, or, we can try and help plan around that. So knowing that scallop season, I say scallop, but knowing that the scallop season is in the fall, and that it would be easier to do in the spring, that's something that we can look at as we're building a schedule out. Thank you for letting us know that.
Your comments or questions from the board?
I would just add that I like the idea of the nighttime work. I think that will cause less disruption, and just making sure that weekends like Daffodil and Stroll, there's no work going on, maybe like that Friday before.
Yeah, we typically, when we issue work orders for these things, we block out dates like that. And I think, I can't remember if it was Danielle or Adam noted, but a utility petition will be coming forward to you with this, and you can always put conditions on it as well. So, but know that I would put those conditions on anything as well.
Thank you.
So
Erica, you're a great working partner, and we certainly appreciate all your efforts. And we'll be working, hand in hand with you, I think, throughout this entire project. And there's a lot of events that are happening on Nantucket. We talked about this in our last meeting. The Stroll, the Wine Festival. There's a myriad of different events that happen. So we can do the best we can to work with you. We want to be a good working partner, as we have been in the past, and we're looking forward to that.
So Erica, from now until when that utility petition comes in, is there any other? I feel like you have a pretty good handle on everything. Like, you're connected to the trucks, and is there any other venues for National Grid, or you that'll be listening to like things like Bobby brought up? And
Danielle's going to do a lot of the outreach. I'm going to give her some groups to talk to,
Okay.
different associations. We've already talked about getting the truckers list together, and try to schedule something with them just in case they have any concerns. So we're going to be really diligent
Okay.
about the outreach.
Great. Anything
Yeah.
else from the board? Melissa, I don't know if sometimes I can't see if you have your hand up at all.
Thanks, Jason. I'm all set.
Okay. If we could take that photo down so I can see everybody. Okay. Thank you everyone from National Grid for coming. And we're looking forward to working with you and making this project work.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thanks. And thank you, Erica, for all the work you're doing on this. I'm sure this is a lot of your time. All right, number 2, property owner request for approval and execution certificate regarding compliance of a conservation restriction dated November 17, 2004 for a property located at 21 Lincoln Avenue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This should be a fairly straightforward transaction. The owners are selling the property. A number of years ago, they put a conservation restriction on the property, which is held by the town. The picture that was in the slide shows you the property that's involved. In order for them to be able to close the transaction, which is scheduled to close tomorrow, they need to have an estoppel certificate certifying that, in fact, all of the terms of the conservation restriction have been honored and there is no problems with respect to enforcement or any issues relative to it. I've had Jeff Carlson and Vincent Murphy on behalf of Natural Resources and on behalf of the town to be able to check out the property. They have gone through the property on April 4th and determined that the property and all of the responsibilities are in compliance. And as a result, it is this recommendation of staff to be able to recommend to the select board that you approve the form of the estoppel certificate, which has been drafted by Vicky Marsh, Town Council, and then execute the estoppel certificate, hopefully tonight, so that they will have it first thing in the morning to be able to go on record. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the board? Matt?
Move approval.
Second.
All those in favor by roll call? Don?
Aye.
Christie?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Jason, aye. That passes 5-0. Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Jeff.
Quick comment.
Sure.
It was great to read it. It was a one big beach easement was part of it and beach access. And it was good to see that in writing. Yeah.
Thank you, Matt. All right, next up, request for grant of utility easement for Nantucket Electric Company. This is, let me try to find the address here.
Wait Drive.
Wait Drive.
I'm going to take you
This is-
through this if
sure.
that's okay.
Yep.
So Wait Drive, which is just behind us, has been under construction for the last year. One of the things that we need is a grant of easement with National Grid to provide the utilities within that roadway. That was approved by town meeting in 2019. Since then, we've had a license agreement in place that serves as a temporary kind of measure between the town meeting vote and getting this grant of easement approved. So this is just the final step.
Motion to approve. Second.
All those in favor by roll call? Don?
Aye.
Christie?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Melissa?
Thank you.
Aye.
Jason, aye. That passes 5-0. Thank you, Erica. Moving on to public hearings. Our first one is a utility petition from Verizon for North Beach Street.
Jason, it's Melissa. I'm going to recuse myself because one of our clients is an affected property. Thanks.
Sure. Thank you, Melissa.
So we have James Del Truando from Verizon to review this.
Hi, my name is James Del Toronto. I'm representing Verizon New England. This is a petition from Verizon and National Grid at the request of DPW's Robert McNeil to relocate 2 poles along North Beach, pole 1 and pole 2. It is to facilitate a new stop sign as this appears to be a dangerous intersection. There will be a new pole at pole 1, and we'll remove the old pole, and a new anchor will be placed, and that will be about 7 feet removed from the other one. And the new pole at pole 2 will be 4 feet off of the existing pole. Are there any questions?
Libby?
I don't know that we have any questions. Unfortunately, we didn't really dig into this until very recently, and it
Right.
was not known to us that this had been a request made by the former DPW director. Not that we have any objection to it, although we thought it had less to do with a stop sign and more to do with a guy wire that's in the sidewalk. And we just wanted to confirm, is that going to be removed?
The guy wire in the sidewalk, at which location is that? Is that pole 1 or pole 2? Do you know, the one closer to the intersection, or?
It's the one further away in front of
Yeah.
4 North Beach.
So the one by 4 North Beach, because the pole is going to be relocated in line, it won't need guying into the yard. So the guy will be removed.
So the guy will be removed from that yard, but what about the one that's in the sidewalk?
I'm not sure. Oh, the down guy on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
I believe that's an electric guy. I don't have any details on that. I can see if I can make a note of that and look into it further.
Okay, that'd be great. Also, earlier today, we had some citizen inquiry about the guy that's in the yard. And I think their concern was they didn't want it to go into the yard again. So it sounds like that concern is addressed because it isn't going to be in any private yard anymore anyway, right?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay, so I don't think we don't really have an objection to this. We were going to dig into it a little bit more and find out just exactly how it relates to the stop sign situation, but
Sure.
it would be good to know about that other guy as well.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Matt?
Looking at the, I'm on page 69 on a packet.
Let me
It
just-
look,
I'll screen
yeah.
share it. Give me one sec.
And if I'm looking at this correctly, it looks like they're both moving closer to the street by 4 feet. Am I reading that right?
No. So
They're going in.
they're going away from the street.
Okay, so they're going the other way.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, cool. Got it. Thanks.
Yeah, right now they're right out by the curb.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I would hope they would go the other way. That's good.
And then I think the intent is since they're going in towards the curb, then that stop sign will be more visible at the
Yeah.
intersection with Easton.
It's a public hearing, so we're going to take some comments. Mary Longacre has her hand up.
Thank you. Just a quick question and a general comment. Looking at this, it's in the sidewalk. I hope that full handicap access will be maintained, or if it's not sufficient at the moment, perhaps improved, so that people are still able to use the sidewalk as intended. And as a general comment, especially in a public hearing, it would be very helpful to have pictures of the existing conditions, since we don't really know until a couple of days before that these are on the agenda. So in the future, that would be a wonderful addition. Thank you.
Were those in the packet, Erica?
Sorry, the pictures were not in the packet. I had them in my email today.
Okay.
So I don't know if everyone at home or the board can see this, but this is the existing guy that's in the yard. And then this is the existing guy that's out in the sidewalk. And this is the one that's up by 4 North Beach. We don't have a picture of the one that's down by the stop sign. But regarding accessible access, I would think that if the pole was actually here, you'd have more access because you're not getting interference from the hedge as well.
Okay, so the guide wire in the yard will be removed from that
I
picture.
mean, that's what Mr. Didorondo said.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, can we go to Lisa Lee?
Hi, my name is Lisa, and we live at the property. We own the property at 4 North Beach, and just sort of checking a 4 feet move actually puts the pole into those hedges. And so, you know, we know it's got to go somewhere. We get it. There is construction next door, and on the map, it looks like this pole would go on the property line, but in reality, this pole is much sort of closer in front of 4 North Beach. And so the question is, you know, there is a break right between the 2 property lines. If it's possible for that pole to go there, just to be a little less obstructive of our yard and, you know, having to take out those hedges or whatever would have to happen to move it 4 feet.
Right. I can't say that I'm at liberty to make that engineering decision based on the field survey where a representative from National Grid and an engineer representing Verizon went out and staked the location. So I wasn't exactly out there. So a minor relocation, I would have to look into if that's something that Verizon and National Grid would be okay with doing.
Okay, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. So we could continue this and more work could be done, or we can pass it now. We have to close the public hearing, but, or if we want to pass it, but we could continue it if they want to continue to discuss. Erica?
Yeah. I just was wondering if those hedges were potentially out near closer to the road right of way than in private property. That's something that the property owner can look into as well.
Yeah, I think that's anything we're going to be able to figure out. With
No,
pictures
not part
here,
of this,
so,
not part of this.
Yeah.
I'm in favor of holding and seeing if they can work this out. If there's something that could be moved.
How's the board feel? Does that make sense, Erica, Dawn?
Yeah, should we continue it to April 27th?
I guess how much time does, James, do you need to reach out to the homeowner and get some stuff figured out? 2 weeks might not be enough.
Yeah, and it's tough to say. I can definitely start looking into it. I don't think 2 weeks would be too long or not enough time. We could at least, I don't know if it can be put on that agenda and then, you know, revised if we need to push it further.
Otherwise we could do, I mean, Libby has the silver sheet, but May 11th is our next meeting after the 27th. That would give them a couple more weeks.
I just don't want to hinder it if they're trying to get it done before season. So, but we can always continue it if at their request.
James, do you know the schedule to actually move the poles? Would it happen
No.
this spring?
So I'm part of a contract, a third-party contractor, so I don't really have anything to, any influence on the scheduling or construction.
That would be something good to know too at some point.
Sure. We go to Lisa. She has her hand up again.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, I'm in support of the owners of 202 and Lisa here. I just wanted to mention that we would be here and would be available for the remainder of the week. We're on island right now, if that's possible, or we can allow our caretaker to address this with James at the appropriate time if that's not possible this week. But I just wanted to mention the clearing that Lisa spoke of previously during the construction. I think I also sent some pictures to Katie prior to this meeting, and you'll see that clearing, which is probably a diagonal 18 by 20 oblong space. I think the drawing that's represented here doesn't necessarily accurately show where that pole is actually placed in front of those hedges. So the rough order 4 feet move would probably engage those plantings in some way. Good to hear that stabilizing our anchor pole would come out, but I think there's still probably some obstruction there, and there's a natural clearing. I don't know if you have that other picture that shows that open space between 4 and 6 North Beach. Again, we can send that if that's helpful, but that seems to be an opportunistic space where, per your commentary, James, if the crew would look at that, that would be an ideal location that would not disturb plantings, would probably give you additional clearance for disabled and space on the sidewalk appropriately. Over.
Thank you. I think it's clear to me that there's a lot more work needs to be done, and we're not going to be able to solve it here tonight. So did you say April 27th? So we'll continue to April 27th. If we need to push it back again, we can. Is there any motion for that?
Second.
All those in favor, Dawn?
Aye.
Christie?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Melissa's recused. Jason and I passes 4-0. Okay. Thank you, Lisa and company and James, and hopefully we can get it worked out and bring it back and shoot it through.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Okay, open the next public hearing to consider amending town regulations as part of recodification process.
This is, oh, did you open the public hearing? Did you just open the public hearing?
I did open it. Yep.
You did, okay. So this is an effort that has been going on for quite a while now. And this is basically a perfunctory hearing required to codify our existing regulations into one central repository, very similar to the way in which the town code is maintained and updated. Katie Cabral in our office has been working on this for quite a while, and she's done a really good job wrangling everybody to get their regulations together and centralized. General Code, the contractor that's used for the town code and also this, basically has put them all together in this one area, and the only there are no substantive wording changes of any kind. It's really just numbering for consistency purposes and some updated references where needed for legal or statutory references. So but they do just need to be like readopted.
This is a public hearing. Erica?
I was just going to note too, just in case anybody's confused why some of these are highlighted and why others aren't. The highlighted sections are the ones that are under the purview of the select board. So the airport will be doing their own. The Board of Health will be doing their own. A couple like sewer and waterways we've already done. So just FYI.
Matt?
Will the changes that say Board of Selectmen be changed to Select Board when we're doing this as well?
That was already supposed to happen.
Okay, because I'm just looking at the changes that are highlighted. Have us our politically incorrect
Yeah,
name still?
those are a little bit older.
Okay.
Because as I mentioned, we started this quite a while ago, but yes, we'll make sure all that is changed.
Yeah, and it says that general changes, all references to Board of Selectmen will be changed to Select Board.
All right, good.
Anything else? Public hearing? Any other
I
comments?
didn't even share that.
Okay, I think is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second.
All those in favor, Don?
Aye.
Christie?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Jason, I. That passes 5-0. Thank you. We'll open the next public hearing.
You need to still adopt that was only to close the public hearing.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to
I'm
adopt.
still getting used to that. Thank you,
Second.
Melissa. All right, all those in favor, Don?
Second.
I thought somebody else seconded.
Matt seconded.
Oh, sorry. I didn't-
Sorry.
Yes, I'm in favor.
Christie?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Jason? Aye. Melissa?
I got it in the.
Aye.
Okay, I mean, I just when I thought I got the public hearings down, the whole closing the public hearing by vote. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, the next public hearing is consider application for an alteration of premises of annual wine and malt beverage restaurant license. You kidding me? Oh my man, what's going on? Okay, I'm going to back up. I'm going to open the public hearing and consider application for new mobile food unit license for Sushi Sean.
3 times fast. Thank you. Good to see everyone in person again. This is a mobile food application for Sushi Sean 1111 is his business. I'm going to go over this quickly and also give you an update as to how we're dealing with mobile food units moving forward. So Sushi Sean previously was in a brick and mortar location on South Water, is now moving to a mobile food unit to do private catering. Also was just approved through the process with the land bank to be at Cisco Beach a couple days a week during the summer. So in reference to that too, I know we've had long discussions about locations. Kind of how we're dealing with this now moving forward is to try to determine separate type of permit and requirements for locations so that we are involved in approving these units, categorizing them between catering, takeout, and or vending to the public. So we're working through that right now. So Sean, like I said, has a Cisco Beach and private catering. And again, any additional locations will have to go through the process that we're working on now, which involves codes and requirements with health, plus zoning, which I believe they've added mobile food units to Article 53 in the town meeting, which classifies some of it as takeout. So we're working through that as well, and also sewer permits. So that will be handled after he is licensed, should any additional locations come up. In the IAS, we reviewed, as usual, the conditions of these licenses, which include no operation downtown in the core or within 500 feet of a licensed food establishment. And it's return to base of operations and those types of requirements. And he has filed and been approved for a food permit plan through health department. So that's all set in his commercial kitchen at 19 Nobodere Farm Road. And I believe that is it. We also have a photo of the unit in there as well. Any questions?
Any questions for Amy or Sean? Public hearing, go ahead. Peter.
I just want to remind the board of something that happened about 8, 9 years ago.
Can you
And-
just state your name for the record,
Oh, I'm sorry,
please?
Peter Schaefer. And I'm speaking for the property owners of Tom Nevers East. Several years ago, we went through a situation with the people that own Nantucket Bakery, bought a house on Chuck Hollow Road and had a commercial kitchen in the house. It was built prior to them buying it. And they were preparing to open a pizza parlor, a pizza business, where they would make the pizzas on Chuck Hollow Road, have trucks sitting on Milestone Road to get the pizzas and deliver them. It was ridiculous, and we fought it and we won, and it was outlawed. According to Lug 2, they shouldn't be allowed to do that anyway. I just want to make sure that we can put a stipulation in for this situation. And Sushi Sean, I have nothing against him. He's great. His food's good. But I think we need a stipulation that no prep can be done on his property, no deliveries can be taken on his property, and no sales can be done on his property. And if that's in there, then we have no problem with it.
Correct. And that is, and they do have to go through zoning in that sort of situation. We did have that situation come up with someone last year and they were cited and ticketed for that as well. So it was reported to us. So that does go through zoning and health codes as well. But it certainly will be a little bit more put into regulations as well. So
Terrific.
yes,
Thank-
absolutely.
Thank
And
you.
certainly anything like that comes up can be reported to us to take a look at. So there are things in place for that.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thanks, Jason. I don't really have a question on this application, but just a note of thanks to Amy for differentiating the different kind of mobile food units and how these are getting approved, because I think what we've seen with some previous approvals is people check the boxes to be able to have a mobile food unit, but then don't have a place to actually sell their food. And I think that it's sort of incumbent upon us that when we're approving them, that they have a place to go, or we at least know where they intend to go. So thank you for that. And I think this, I think this is a good application.
Thank you.
Anybody else? It's a public hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor? Dawn?
Aye.
Christie?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Jason, aye. The public hearing is closed. Pleasure of the board.
Can I just a question to clarify if I could? So you're saying, like, what if someone has, so they can't, so a mobile unit can't have a kitchen at home? What if they have a commercial kitchen at home? Or
What
if
if-
they have a, what is it called? When you have a cottage, you have that ability to have one or two
dwelling.
people, yeah. Where does that happen?
Yeah, so I'm not a zoning expert. I don't want to, but we have to go through any location. And right now they are coming through us. As Melissa mentioned, we kind of ran into this big time last year. People were buying units before even having a business plan, which was stressful for all involved. So, but they do have to, any location they come to us, hey, can we do this here? Because we really don't have a lot of locations and we're trying to do this so we can establish locations, license them, and then this is where you can go, you work out your deal. So they do have to get a zoning approval. Commercial kitchens certainly have to go through that as well, as far as where they can be located. So that all goes through the health code and zoning. So I guess that they're going to cover that for us. So right now we are getting, anytime they want to come somewhere, they call us, say, hey, we can go here.
Right, but I'm
So-
wondering, does it address what, I'm asking, does it address what Peter's talking about?
From my understanding, it does,
Okay.
because we have run into that. But again, that's something I will bring up with health. I'm meeting them next week to kind of go over all this, to make sure I understand that.
Right, because I know
Yeah.
if you have less than, if you're doing it yourself, you're allowed to do a lot of this stuff at
Right.
home, under 900 square feet. And, and I agree, the pizza business wasn't that was
Yeah.
being proposed. But I think that some people are running those type of operations. And
Yeah.
So I want to,
Correct.
where does the line get drawn? That's all I'm asking.
Yeah, no, and I will follow up with health too, to make sure I understand that as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I understood Peter's question was about Chuck Hollow, which is where it's parked overnight. The commercial kitchen is on Nobodere Farm Road.
Right. Correct. And they have to return to that base of operations. So we do have them identify where it is going to be parked, because we certainly run into that in the past. It's all been kind of a learning curve the past 10 years for sure. So that gets reviewed as well.
Right. And I understand in this case it was, I'm asking generally, is that, what are we doing? That's all.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Any other comments or questions? Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor by roll call, Don,
Aye.
Christie,
Aye.
Matt,
Aye.
Melissa,
Aye.
Jason, aye. That passes. Thank you, Sean, and good luck.
Thank you. Thank you all. I appreciate it.
I'm going to recuse on this one.
Sure. Okay, Matt's going to recuse to the four of us. Okay, now we'll get to the public hearing to consider application for alteration of premises of annual wine and malt beverage restaurant license for 45 Surfside Road.
Okay. If we can, Erica, put up photos of the patio area to help kind of in the discussion. Okay. So I'll just go over quickly the history of this and set this up. And we also have the applicant here this evening for questions and comments. As you mentioned, this is a alteration of premises application for 45 Surfside Road LLC, DBA 45 Surfside at, you guessed it, 45 Surfside Road. They have a annual restaurant wine and malt beverages license. And quickly on the history, because we have had this application before, as I've outlined, they're requesting in this application to allow for wine and malt beverages service to be allowed on their pre-existing approved outdoor patio. There will be no overall increase in the approved occupancy, as it has been part of their location over the years. It just was never approved for liquor service. So quickly, the history of this is that they originally applied for a liquor license in 2016. At the time, for an all alcohol license, it was denied and requested that they come back for beer and wine only. They did that. It was approved again at the time with objection from the fire and police chiefs as far as its location across from the elementary school. Again, they came in for an alteration of premises again for this same service in 2018. In 2019, both requests were again denied for the same reasons. And the official reason as given to the applicant was the intended service of alcoholic beverages outside the building would be inappropriate at this location, given its proximity to the bicycle walking path and public elementary school. As you know, with any liquor license, new or an alteration within 500 feet of a school or church religious property, you have to approve that it's not detrimental to those facilities. That's part of it. And location and neighborhood is certainly one of the reasons that you have to consider for approving this. Obviously, in 20 and 21, like in every property, it was allowed in response to the COVID-19 state of emergency outdoor dining allowances. We did allow for the service of alcohol to be moved to the outdoor patio, as we did kind of across the board. So what they're asking for now is, again, a permanent addition of this service to the patio. A couple things I want to highlight as the state ABCC just updated outdoor guidelines, not too much differently, but it kind of a couple things to consider. Again, speaking for the police chief as well, who still would like to register an objection to alcohol at a location in proximity to the school, in view of the school. In the case that the board considers approving this application, we've included a couple considerations and conditions that we would request be considered in the event of an approval, which would be Chief's request was for, and I know these pictures, obviously, I'll say to them, are older. I know you have some flower boxes out there now too, so I just wanted them to be able to see the area a little bit better. One of his conditions would be to have it a little bit more covered, so it can't be viewed from the public way as well. The second condition, and again, this is something part of the ABC conditions that we would request, is a couple of things. The local licensing authority have discretion to apply reasonable conditions to the outdoor alcoholic beverage service areas, such as the requirement of food service and or seated service, as we've done before. Again, putting a condition on time of year is also possible for outdoor service, being when the school is closed, June to August, you have that ability to put that condition as well. Secondly, outdoor alcoholic beverage service area should be contiguous to the licensed building with a clear and direct view of the outdoor area from inside the licensed building premises, which this is technically. Further, the licensee must actively supervise the outside alcoholic beverage service area. So the one condition that we would say right now, based on their service, the way they do service, and again, this may change as COVID hopefully is less of an issue, is that it's not table service. You order from the counter and then receive your food or beverages from that point and take it to wherever you're going to sit. In this case, I think we would request that there be active service to these tables if it is outdoors, because the windows, although looking out on it, there's no active staff looking out there. They're taking orders, they're in the kitchen. So something of this sort, if it's considered across from the school, would ask that you consider either assigning an active staff member to that area or service to it, so people aren't taking the alcohol and can take it and leave, or what have you, serve it to someone else. So it should be served, I think, by a staff member would be a condition. I think, what was one more thing? Also, I know, I just wanted to say that in this instance, and the objections that we have expressed are a direct relation to the location and the school, and is not in any way a reflection of the applicant or their business. You know, there's no issue with the applicant. I just want to make clear that the objection is to a precedent of alcohol service across from a school in an outdoor area. So that is very clear. They are good business, and we have not had any issues with the business as a whole. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Amy.
Okay.
Hi.
Hello.
Would you like to speak?
Well, you just about took care of everything. Thank you
Okay.
very much. But I would like to add that, yes, the last.
We just state your name for the
Rebecca
record.
Bursinger.
Thank you,
Thank
Rebecca.
you. The last 2 years during COVID, we had our window boxes up then. They were specially ordered. Wasn't easy to get them because they needed to sit up on top of the wood planks, and they're quite wide, so they had to be a special, and they needed to be high. And then on top of that, the flowers that we choose are very high. I took pictures the first year of my staff behind them, and you could not see them from the parking lot. You couldn't see anyone there. And so that's what we put in place. we have a lot of them. Portia thanks my daughter that I bought too many, but I love flowers anyway. And it is very obstructive. You really can't see much behind there once they're there. And they're very attractive when they're all dolled up and all of that. So COVID's been very interesting, but it has allowed us the opportunity to have 2 years behind us with no problems, nobody at our establishment, nobody, there's 45 Surfside isn't the kind of place that you sit for hours and all of that. You need to get in and sort of get out to a certain extent because there's only so much parking there. So you're going to sit, you might have, a beer, that sort of thing, but it's sort of time to go. So it's really not an issue. As far as kids going by during the summertime, there's really not a lot of that. I can see it because if you walk in, you'll always see me. I'm always there and I can see through the window and you don't see students so much really. So it's mostly people on their bikes, visitors, that sort of thing.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you.
Any comments or questions for Rebecca or Amy, or just general comments?
I had a couple questions.
Sure.
So this, during COVID, they're able to have the liquor outside. Were there any issues in 2020 or 2021?
No issues.
I have quite a few questions. Can I just
You're-
keep going?
yeah, keep going.
So I saw recently that you're going to be expanding to dinner. So could we have limitations on when liquor, like certain times a day that liquor could be served?
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that extension, so that might be something we have to consider. But absolutely, hours and conditions on time of year, especially for outdoor service, is allowed. We would just have to specify that as we send it to the state.
Okay.
And of course, our staff is tip certified. And we could certainly have someone outside that's tip certified.
All of the kind of restrictions that were laid out in the packet, I think are reasonable if we were going to approve this. I think one of the things that I was thinking about, in terms of the location is if we approve this, next door is the Muse, are they going to want the outdoor as well? That's even closer. And I know that we can't compare locations, but I just don't want to set a precedent. Just something that I thought of. But I definitely would want the active staff to limit it during summer and not while school is in session, and to just be careful around timing, around breakfast, lunch, or dinner. I don't know if there's any other thoughts.
Thank you, Christy. Dawn and Melissa?
I think my biggest concern last time when we didn't approve it was that there wasn't someone outside to monitor. And if that's changing, then I really don't have any concerns. I'm happy with the conditions suggested.
Yeah, I think the reason outdoor dining works with alcohol is table service, so it's controlled.
Right. And food, seated food service.
Right.
Correct.
Yep.
I
Melissa?
agree with that. Yeah, thank you, Jason. I agree with that. And I like the conditions set forth in the packet.
Okay, this is a public hearing. Any other comments? Sure.
So my name is Portia Merzinger, and I just want to express that if the flower boxes weren't enough or we didn't have enough flowers, that we'd be more than happy to add more if needed to hold or whatever. But I just don't want it to be a no because we don't have adequate blocking from the public way. We're more than happy to add whatever needed to be able to serve outside as well.
Thank you.
I do have a photo of said flower boxes when I realized
Yeah.
it wasn't in the packet.
Amy, could you just go over the main conditions that Melissa and other people were fine with, right? I mean, table service was one of them.
Right. So, and as the ABCC expresses, is having as we call it, active table service. So the requirement of food service and or seated service being the main tenant. So that'd be seated food service, and alcoholic beverage would be served by a staff member, not pulled out of the cooler and taken out and then switched to an underage. That's the fear, obviously. So if it could be active table service and alcohol served by a staff member. Certainly you still have your model where folks can come up and order at the counter service too as well. And if they order, they want to have a beer and wine, that is brought out to them by a licensed staff member. So it's kind of active seated table service.
Were there any other conditions on just the summer season or times? Just want to go over that.
Yes, I would be in favor of limiting it to when school is not in session.
June to August
I feel like there
timeframe.
was concern about how to monitor that last time.
Yeah, as far as, there's concern about enforcement in general to make sure it's not too particular. That's something that can't be enforced. But, I think there's some trust here in how they run the business and that sort of situation. So that's something that can be a little bit easier to monitor. I go to lunch there quite often. So, I see how it works too in that sense. So I think there's going to be some trust level to say this is how we do it. And then we do inspections based on the conditions of the license. So,
excuse me.
yeah.
We're just, I'm sorry. We're just about always there. So, and we don't have kids that work for us. They're mostly adults. And like I said, they're TIPS certified. So we have a pretty good handle of what goes on there. We take it very seriously. It's a family business. So we've got our hands on it.
Yeah.
Melissa?
Thanks, Jason. And this may have been stated and I missed it. But, I hear Christie's comment about limiting it when school's not in session. But if they're going to do a dinner service in the spring or fall, those follow after school hours. So I think that it would be appropriate to let alcohol service in the evening happen, even if school is in session. Was that the recommendation, Amy, or am I putting a finer point on it?
That can be, like I said, I wasn't aware of that extension of service at the time of the application. So I think that's something that can be put into the conditions. And I think it's
so
something
essentially
to,
it might read like no alcohol service during school hours, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. Year round, something like that.
And they might have to adjust. What might be good is communication on the menu level as far as when you walk in or different things like that. There might be a way to help that too as well, to communicate to customers coming in that sense. We can figure that out. But yeah, I think that's something we can put on that as a condition.
Does that make sense to everyone? Rebecca, you are there every single time I've been there. I've never not seen you there. And I think that gives us a lot more confidence that it's owner operated. So anytime there's a new liquor license, we're always hesitant to see how it's going to run. And sometimes there's the trust and understanding how the operations work. So I think that is definitely in your favor. I mean, I really have never seen you not there before.
Yes, I am always there.
Yeah. Okay, pleasure of the board. Oh, so is there a
motion to close the public
Thank you,
hearing?
Dawn.
Second.
All those roll call. Dawn.
Aye.
Christy.
Aye.
Melissa.
Aye.
Jason. Aye. So the public hearing is closed. Any other comments?
I would make a motion to approve with the conditions as suggested, limiting daytime service to when school's not in session and nighttime service. For as long as they want to extend into the shoulder seasons, I would say after 5.
Yeah, with dinner service. It is allowed for dinner service and during the school closures. Summer school closure. So it's allowed during dinner service and all day through school closure in the summer.
Right, and also only to be served through table service.
Yep, active table service by a
Active table
staff member.
service, yep.
And maintaining the flower
coverage.
boxes.
And to communicate to
coverage.
licensing and the chief of police with, the setup and all that, just a good measure.
that the motion? We're all set. Erica, you have everything?
I'll second.
All those in favor by roll call? Don?
Aye.
Christie?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Jason, aye. The motion passes 4-0.
Now, and for the location to the school, you need to do that's not detrimental as outlined in conditions.
I would move that with the conditions outlined, it's not detrimental in regard to the proximity to a school.
Second.
All those in favor? Don?
Aye.
Christie?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Jason, aye. That also passes 4-0. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Portia.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Amy, for setting that up.
And just a clear example of how the outdoor dining kind of let us ease into some of this. You
Mhm.
know, we were adamantly against this in 2018 and 2019, and then we got to see it in action.
Yeah, if it's done well and responsibly, and I think it's gonna be, should be, nobody will even, maybe even really notice.
Mhm.
So let's hope for the best. Town managers report.
Go ahead, Amy.
Still me. Okay. So we're going to do a review of outdoor dining again. I want to read real quick. I just sent an email, which I think is going to explain a couple things. I know some folks saw this and some abutters had reached out to us in this situation. I just want to say that those listening in tonight is not a public hearing or review of any one location. It is to acknowledge and accept extension of the state legislation to allow for local approval of COVID-related outdoor extensions. Upon any approval of the program and permit fees and conditions this evening, each establishment will have to reapply for the space, and it will be reviewed by the select board either later in April or May, that we have to allow for a fair application process. So just wanted to state that prior to this. So again, we're going to review the status, where we are. After the last meeting, the state finally did at the last hour extended the pandemic era relief provisions related to restaurants. Section 27 of the Act extends the ability of cities and towns to approve requests for the expansion of outdoor table service until April the 1st, 2023. So it's just a one-year extension of what we've been living with, which essentially is allowing for local control and approval of these spaces without the usual public hearing and state approval process. One other thing too to mention is that this section also extends, oh, whoops. I think I just said that. No, I'm sorry. I'm used to being in person here. Okay. The other thing I wanted to mention was that beer, wine, and cocktails to go has been extended again as well for another year, which extends the ability of restaurants to sell beer, wine, and cocktails to go until April the 1st, 2023. That has a bunch of conditions with it that we will re-communicate to restaurants, which requires food order with those to go alcohol and limited the amount of alcohol you can sell with each order.
Amy, how much was that used? And did you ever have any issues in the last year or two?
Yeah. So as far as how much it was used, I think it was, certainly in the beginning used a lot because people were all doing takeout. I do have an instance right now that I have to send out a warning to that it seems to be that alcohol, you can go on and purchase alcohol without food on a website. And so I'm going to follow up on that this week. Not huge problems, but again, you get a little laxed. It's kind of part of the way it is right now, but they extended that for another year. So we will communicate that as well as to what those conditions are. So next, what does this mean for our Nantucket restaurants? To move forward for 2022, we recommend the following steps because everything expired locally on December 31st of last year, they will need to reapply, which is pretty standard across the state. Even if it's the same type of setup, just reapply for that by May so that we can get this all settled. Applications for the public property sidewalk dining will be for 2022 only. And we're recommending that there's no increase in their current approved occupancy with 2020 outdoor sidewalk dining permits. So secondly, I'm going to read in a minute from the Cambridge Licensing Board because it seems to outline what I believe in this situation here is that the legislative history of this program is that the extension would allow towns and cities that did not have outdoor programs set up prior to COVID-19 to make all necessary changes to create ones. So this is an instance where the extension was allowed to allow towns like Nantucket to determine their final full public use property. Place like Cambridge has had it for 20 years. They're going for full approval through the state. Someplace like Nantucket, this is our ability to extend the program and see how we wish to move forward permanently. So again, we have asked that businesses file an application to have the outdoor area included in their license. For the private property locations, in most cases, we're going to be looking for a full application for a normal process, meaning all of the exceptions that occurred during COVID for zoning, tents, what have you, special permits no longer exist. So a lot of private property extensions have restrictions. One, I'll take a Mid-Island restaurant that has some tables outside, wants to continue using those to replace some indoor seating, doesn't want to increase occupancy. However, they have a special permit that says no outdoor dining. They need to go through planning and get that amended in order to continue. And at that point, we would require that they go for a full application process, similar to what Island Kitchen just did last month. They went through the planning process, are going to add that seating. However, it's not occupancy increasing, it's replacing those outdoor seats. So next. So private. So I think we just went through that. We can go to the next thing, to the fee recommendation. Up one more. There we go. So along with this discussion, we have talked about use of public space for the past 2 years. Obviously, we did that to help these restaurants survive during the state of emergency when they had no interior seating. Obviously, as we're moving away from that now, we are recommending having a permit fee situation, depending on number of tables and alcohol service license. We've established, a basic kind of permit system that would be for the year. Again, we have this year to determine the future of this on public property spaces. So this would be for 2022. I did a basic kind of tiered system that starts with those locations. We have a couple that don't have alcohol service, and it would be allowed, suggested normally April 1st. Obviously, we're looking into May 1st now to stroll time period, a common vicular required, no takeout only location. So these are folks that have seating with their license, which is what a common vicular is, must fit within their storefront and not extend to abutters. We're looking at a maximum of 3 tables, obviously nothing more than a 4 top, depending on the location. And they must be removed if they're going to be long closures more than 3 consecutive days. Similar type of conditions as we go down. I've just increased it by $250 as we go up from a beer and wine license up to those 3 tables or 12 seats. And then if it's more than that, $1,000, then an all alcohol license at $1,250 and $1,500. I know we've discussed square footage types of things. What I've seen really is that comes into play when you have a parking space or, set spaces. We have a commercial square footage fee downtown that I looked at, $125, and different types of fees. Obviously, everyone had sent me the Boston $7,000 fee. Brookline is up to $9,000. However, they are doing parking spaces that already have a revenue generation on them because of parking fees. So that's why we're seeing such high fees in those areas. They can actually relate it to direct revenue. So this is a recommendation again for 1 year. If we go up again, we have the guidelines that I kind of just went through in the past hearing about the ABCC as far as the guidelines they released in April here about outdoor alcoholic beverage service areas. Again, it's similar to what we've dealt with in the past, being contiguous to the property, seated food service. They need to be, as much as they can, roped off from public areas. We specifically have to approve the transport of alcohol across public sidewalks. Say in the instance of, I'll just use Crown, if the tables are across from their door, they actually have to cross a public way in order to serve the alcohol. So you'll specifically have to approve that sort of situation. And again, the conditions that we just talked about as well. Can we go up one more, Erica? And again, I just outlined the basic license conditions and agreement. There'll be several others depending on health code. I talked to health yesterday about dogs and different things that they would need. But basically, we covered hours of operation, similar to what we did during COVID, but as asking that no sidewalk seating area being used beyond 10 p.m. daily, no entertainment on these spaces, maintenance of the public right of way, and their full responsibility to clean and manage the maintenance for these areas and putting in different things that could help things from blowing everywhere. And a minimum, very important, of a 48 inch, 60 inches preferred of sidewalk closure, 4 to 5 feet must be maintained to always ensure ADA accessibility and a clear pedestrian path. In most cases, since we don't have huge sidewalks, that means one lane, either they're next to their building. Backyard Barbecue is able to do that because they don't have the trees. Other places like a Crown would be across from them, but we're asking for one side or the other. I don't think any place where we can have tables on both sides and maintain the ADA accessibility requirements. Most people were lax on that the past 2 years, but we can't be moving forward. Proof of consent by any third parties involved. There's some right-of-ways in different situations that came into place, and every single thing we did had to be negotiated with someone. So that has to be in writing and agreed to. Again, signage and advertising restrictions. Again, while we allow modest enhancement of these outdoor seatings, flowers, planters, and things, such signs and corporate logos, including that of the restaurant, may not be displayed. HDC regulations, we allowed some umbrellas to have corporate branding because they were donated to the restaurants at the time. So we'd be asked that be taken off or replaced. Again, there'll be heaters and other types of regulations required for safety, and we'll be needing liability sign off and insurance requirements for the town. So that's a basic outline of conditions. I think I can maybe get some questions and see if we can direct the conversation. Okay.
Any thoughts, comments from the board? I'll get us started. Some things that I like. We've learned a lot. ADA 4 to 5 feet, I think, is great. I love the 10 p.m. stop. That was our initial big concern, was music, entertainment, drink out on the street. So I think that's done really well. And no logos on umbrellas. So I think I like where we've gotten to.
Yeah.
And I think it can be really successful. I've been a proponent of this, last year and this year. I think you've done a good job, Amy, of looking at what other towns do. How does that fit here on Nantucket? I might have some suggestions on the fees, but I can stop there. Matt, Christie?
What are your
Matt?
thoughts on the fees, Jason?
I thought maybe going up a little bit. I don't want to hurt the restaurants who are doing this, but I think if they have alcohol, they can pay for it they can cover it pretty quick. It helps those who don't have access to a sidewalk say, okay, at least, they're paying something. There's some kind of fee to use the public space, taxpayer space. So I'll hear from everybody else first, before I throw out some different numbers, if that's okay.
Yeah, no, in that, that's one of my concerns, is how we fare to the people who don't get it. And I think that's one way to do it. And, and so I think that would be something I think we should consider.
Yeah, I agree. And I had sent Amy the article about the North End charging $7,500 for outdoor dining, but that has to do with parking spaces. So, I think these are reasonable fees, but could go up a little bit. They're very much in line with what we're charging for the alcohol license. And so it's not, a huge fee for these establishments.
Well, sir, Don, Matt?
Yeah, here's the question. So we've got 500 for no alcohol service.
Right.
What about, has there any discussion of sort of the Broad Street, that area? Have you guys worked on that?
Well, yeah, thank you. I was going to actually bring that up. I would consider juice bar and taking that space to be a non-alcohol use of the sidewalk. So I would apply it to that situation as well. I know we had another situation where we actually blocked off a parking space for, was it Stubbies or in that area too, because the line started to really get, so we're going to have to, those things aren't going to go away regardless. So we might have to think of, the other part of this is that we recommend certainly long-term planning, because obviously outdoor dining was liked by a lot of people. We're not trying to kill outdoor dining in these other areas, but try to think of a long-term plan that would be, beneficial to all involved in different things. But yeah, for those types of situations, I think it'd be fair to apply the sidewalk type of permit and fee to those establishments.
Matt, do you think there should be two versions of that? Because somebody could have one table with no alcohol for 500, and then somebody could take 300 feet of sidewalk for their line, which seems a little different.
Potentially, we'd have to figure it out.
Yeah.
I think you're right. It isn't going away. I think there were efficiencies that happened in that whole area.
Right.
There isn't seating, but it was, closing that at night and allowing a place for people to congregate, kept them from being in the street as much.
Correct.
And allowed people to pass on those sidewalks.
Right.
And so I'm worried about going backwards, so.
Yeah. And the consideration is there, and it's up to the select board to move into parking space things, but it's hard because we don't have what a Brookline or Boston has, which is extensive public transportation, even Hyannis having parking lots on the backside of all these restaurants. So we don't have those other solutions to help with that. So that's why we encourage long-term planning to allow for some more pedestrian spaces. But at this point, we feel this is the fairest way to move forward and allow for it.
Dawn?
I'm really happy with where you've gotten to for the most part, but I think the fees are too low. I just don't think they're consistent with renting that kind of area.
Right.
The $500 is like $100 a month.
Right.
Because I'm figuring it's about a 5-month outdoor season.
Right.
So I think we do need to rethink that. I think, $7,500 is excessive, and Boston obviously does bigger business, and they can link it because they have had paid parking to that revenue source, but we can link it to, what's that square footage worth? It would be, if we really went there, it would be
It's 125
up,
a square
but
foot, I think, commercially, right downtown. Does that sound about right?
Probably.
I asked my mother. So yeah. So from what I understood, it was 125 square foot commercially. And then I looked at, okay, when we do temporary liquor permits for an event, it's 50 for beer and wine, 100 for, so how many events are they having with liquor out on the sidewalk? So, it's $50 or $100 per each of those. So, those are things I kind of looked at as well. I did look at other cities that did. Cambridge, again, has had a long time sidewalk permit situation where the permits are only about $250, $300, but again, it's a different situation. Their liquor licenses are more expensive, and they have fees in other areas that I think cover some of that situation. So that's why it was hard to kind of come up something in the middle of that. And again, our liquor license fees range from $1,500 to $3,500 or so. That's maybe the basic range for these liquor licenses. So those are kind of the considerations. Yeah.
I'm kind of thinking the fees could be double what you proposed. And that's would still be reasonable and a little more defendable to people who are not able to get that space.
Correct.
Melissa?
Thanks, Jason. I agree. Amy, thank you so much. This is a really thoughtful and great policy guideline. So there's clearly a lot of work that went into it. And I can see why you started the fees where you did, because it's always easier to go up than it is to cut back down. But I share my board members' concerns that the fees are too low to start. And I think that it's premium space, and that's, we're making it available to them. On the other hand, also, we want our businesses to be successful. So I think there's room for a good balance in there. But thank you. This is a really great presentation. I'm excited to see the applications that come in.
Thank you.
Dawn had suggested doubling. I had something close to that, keeping the, just to go down the line, keeping the first part the same, 500.
Yep.
And then 1,000, 1,500, 2,000, 2,500. So it's not quite double, but it's close. So 500, 1,000, 1,500, 2,000, and 2,500. So the top two tiers, your top three,
Mhm.
you're raising 500, 750, and 1,000.
Okay.
That was what I had kind of jotted down, but we could make it easier.
I think that's reasonable.
And again, may I add that, again, we're working with this 1-year extension. And this is to allow a town like Nantucket that hasn't done this in the past to determine what its future looks like. So again, it is for the 2022 season, and we can see how that goes.
Melissa?
Thanks. That's just what I was going to say is I think that's a reasonable start, Jason. I like those numbers, and then we can see what happens and how this goes and go up from there if we feel that we need to.
Right.
Jason, can you repeat those numbers that you said?
Keep the first level the same at 500. The next one is 1,000, 1,500, 2,000, and then 2,500 for the all liquor 4 tables plus.
Right. And may I add, as far as, next steps with this too, as well as the board will have a chance to obviously review the list that comes in and the specific locations and requirements and the plans for
Mhm.
those. We'll take each thing that comes in, private or public, have planning look at it, make sure there's nothing we're not thinking of or that needs to be done, and then present it to the select board as they come in for approval.
Mhm. Amy, you said you're going to have a meeting or be available
Yep.
for restaurants to ask questions and
Yeah, I told them we'll set up a Zoom and I'll be out in public at a coffee shop near you they want to come in and talk. I'm not going to say it here. I'll send them an email as well so that they, want to come and talk and we want to review it in the next few days. We'll do so. And we'll send them the ability to apply as well within the next day so that we can kind of get moving and see who
Okay.
wants to do what we need to
I'd
do.
be interested on the feedback because there might be something we're not seeing. Like if you have 3 tables, you might go with that because it's under here.
Yeah.
But if you had, so
It's a basic guideline. And again, it was hard to do square footage because you can have some places that are using more square footage because there's trees in the middle and they're trying to, so as long as it's within their storefront. And so there might be certain situations I'm not thinking of. But again, 4 top being maximum, because sometimes they move chairs over as well. So it's amount of space they're taking up. And again, we haven't thought of something space wise, going to see each space and what they propose will help with that. And again, what we'll have to do is public hearing to adopt the fees, even on a 1-year basis. Temporary extensions don't necessarily require the same things, but we can do so at the same time and start doing that.
is there anybody else here like to make a comment?
Just have one more question. Are there any mid-island locations or would that pricing be different?
Yeah, nothing that came up, and most mid-island locations are bound to the special permits and things of that sort. They have requirements that downtown doesn't with parking. And again, another thing to bring up too, and again, if there's a place that hasn't done it and wants to send an application, and we'll take a look at it and see if it applies or should be permanent. The other thing too is why we're saying no increase in occupancy. Anything of that sort on a temporary basis, again, there's health codes, there's bathroom requirements, things of that sort that would kick in. So again, we're going to have to look at each one specifically. Most will be the same that they've been, so it should be pretty easy to go through those. But yeah, Mid-Island all have special permits and requirements. So
Good question.
yeah.
Going to see tables next to Stop and Shop out
Yeah.
there on the sidewalk on Pleasant Street.
No. Yeah, I don't think there's any sidewalks I can think of. So
Okay. Any other direction or anything else you need from us?
nope.
Do we need a
I'll work
motion on
with-
those numbers or it's just,
Nope. I'll work with Erica and see if we can we'd have to do an official public hearing to adopt those fees. Again, our next licensing hearing is not till May 18th, but I would ask if we can possibly do that on the last April meeting, if possible, to push through so that we can have folks starting in May.
if we can, that'd be nice, so they
Yeah.
can make their decisions. I don't know
I can put the notice
Libby's
in
looking
if
at
we
her-
can and do that
at the book.
in 2 weeks.
Don't we usually advertise fee changes 3 weeks?
That is specifically for regulations.
Okay.
And these, we would probably get away
Temporary
with,
fees.
I mean, at this point, it can only be 1 week, the
Yeah.
22nd.
Yeah.
So it'll have to get in that paper.
If that can, yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
Okay, that'll be the plan. And I will communicate with restaurants tomorrow.
Okay, yeah, if there's any good feedback, please
Yeah.
send it our way. Love to hear it.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
Silver lining in the pandemic, outdoor dining for Nantucket. Okay, oh, sorry, Libby. Still in town manager's report.
Okay, so next discussion regarding dredging of ditches in Maticat. This is continued from March 16th, public comments by Mr. DaCosta, and the March 23rd select board request for this to be placed as an agenda item. And I think we have the Natural Resources Director, the Coastal Resilience Coordinator on remote, and is Thais remote too? Okay. She's going, these actually pair together pretty well, the item 2 and 3, because Thais is going to give us our 2021 annual water quality report, which a little bit relates to some of this. So I think we wanted to hear from Natural Resources about this dredging of the ditches in Maticat idea. Jeff?
Sure. I'll hop in. Thank you guys for having us on here, and thanks to Mr. DaCosta for bringing back this subject for discussion. It's always good to go over these things that have drifted off during COVID a little bit and get updates to everybody and a little bit of information where we are. So thanks to Bobby for bringing it back up again. So where we are on this project in totality, it's something that we've looked at. The former DPW director, Mr. McNeil, was kind of the spearhead on this project for a bit, and it also tied in a lot with the project where we looked at the actual culvert structures themselves and the evaluation of the current facilities that are there, their condition, and their sizing to some degree. And it culminated a couple of years ago in a larger discussion that Rob had held in relation to the dredging of those or replacing of culverts in a Zoom that we were able to have with U.S. Fish and Wildlife, who has some permitting interest in it, Mass Coastal Zone Management, Mass DEP, our local agencies here, Division of Marine Fisheries was involved, and I feel like I'm forgetting someone. And then our consultants were involved as well from the town end. And really the message that we took home from that, and I'll let Vince and Thais touch on these aspects a little bit more, were a project of this nature is not something that they look overly favorably upon, and it's something that's going to get segmented and get done in bits and pieces and dribs and drabs as we look at kind of adapting that whole area for not only resiliency, but for some of those other interests. So with that being said, I'll turn it over a little bit to Vince. I know Vince has been pretty extensively involved in some discussions about how those culverts in that ditch affect flooding and flood storage capacity, especially in Long Pond. And then I know Thais did some work related to that Maticat ditch, and we ran it as one of our model update scenarios to do some dredging in there as it related to the estuaries report update that we did do for there. And then I'll take back over and kind of talk about where we are for next steps on this, and then we'll take any questions. It's all yours, Vince.
Thank you. Thanks, Jeff. So the Coast Resilience Plan does talk about alterations to first and second bridge, the culverts there. It's recommendation 3.1 from the CRP, and it discusses raising the road. One of the things that it also goes through in detail is about the culverts and the culvert sizing and increasing the culverts for increased capacity. What we learned in doing that the culverts are effectively the flow control mechanism. And we have them at not just first and second bridge, we also have them at Cambridge Street by by the outflow into Hither Creek. So those culverts need to be correctly sized if there's going to be any works. Essentially, the one at Cambridge Street is the largest. I don't see that there's any major issue there. There's pretty good flow there. And I also haven't seen major issues with the flow at Second Bridge as it enters Long Pond. But we know with sea level rise, there's going to be significant changes. We also have to consider the neighbours in that area. There's significant landowners in that area. And if we do make significant changes to the culverts, we have to work with them in order to not impact their lands or cause unnecessary or unintended flooding. So the engineering of those culverts will have to be a very significant factor in this. That's my bit.
I'll just touch on the water quality section in regards to the dredging. As Jeff stated before, as part of the Massachusetts Estuary Project, our linked watershed embayment model determined the critical nitrogen loading threshold for Maticat Harbor in the Long Pond system. And this model was also rerun recently, and based on its 4 scenarios, that included dredging, that actually did not bring it to meet its total maximum daily load. And so based on that model and that data, we can at least say that dredging will not meet its total maximum daily load. So in addition to that, some other concerns when we had our initial call with a group of individuals was that because of the ditch, there's existing habitats there currently. So we have our wetlands, we also have fish that are going around there. And so by dredging, that would actually require a lot of permitting and also would disturb the habitat that has now since grown in there. And Jeff, I'll pass it back to you.
Sure. So kind of where we are on the project is obviously, and kind of picking up from where Rob left off a little bit, is one of the complications with this, and I'm sure it's not the most popular answer for the room this evening, is, you know, the message was kind of loud and clear, especially from U.S. Fish and Wildlife and some of the state agencies, that if we're going to be doing a project where we're looking at those culverts and that ditch together and how that's going to impact that wetland in between, that we need to do it all together and not segment it as much as possible to try to minimize the impacts to that area in total. And then since all of those discussions have been going on, obviously there's been some revitalized discussions as it relates to potentially sewering Maticat. That's gone back and forth, and that's a little bit broader of a conversation. But then with the CRP being completed and this being one of the goals there to deal with Maticat Road being within the flood zone, has kind of put that all together. And I think what we're trying to do is get a project for this area that addresses both the ditch, the culverts, and the road kind of all synced together, and hopes to minimize the impacts to those areas, and then also, you know, minimize the, you know, mobilization and costs and things for the town, and to try to do it all together and permit a project that we feel is permissible through all those agencies that describes the project in totality. And that's kind of where we are. So I think we're happy to take any questions. I'm sure there'll be a few, and we'll try our best to answer.
Thank you, Jeff. Any questions on the board? Or
yeah, just a comment. I think we're making this more confusing than it has to be. I think that we're talking about a bunch of different things. I think Bobby's concern, and he'll talk, I'm sure he'll speak for himself. My concern is that this happens in Bobby's lifetime. And if I want, from the look of him, he might not last much longer after tonight. But I think, you know, I think we're making this, you know, a lot bigger than it has to be. Those ditches have been dug and taken care of for 200 years. We've had votes of the Mass legislature allowing it. You know, I did some homework on it because, you know, because I knew we were talking about it again. And I think, you know, it was done prior to us owning the island. So we dug them, we've done it for a long time. And I think that the idea is to let the flow happen and allow some of the fish to go back in. That's what we're missing. And in step 2, I agree with, I think they should be larger and we should allow the wetlands to expand, and hopefully it will take care of the, total daily loads and help the harbor, the water quality, et cetera. But I think that's kind of step 2. And so anyway, that's my comment on it.
Thank you, Matt. Bobby?
I've never heard the can kick down the road so hard in my entire life. This is not that difficult. I'm sorry. I'm not going to, Jeff, I can't agree with you. I can't agree with you, Vince. Maticat sewering, probably not going to happen in my lifetime. That's my gut feeling. Coastal, whatever that plan is that we spend all that money on, raising the roads, flooding, all that. I'm talking about one simple thing here. First bridge. Second bridge is fine. Cambridge Bridge is fine. First bridge has silted in. The heron come into the pond every spring. They come down the ditch from the creek. I was working on the creek all this week and I saw heron flopping around, birds grabbing them. They get into the pond. Some of them go up to Massasoit and they spawn up in that direction, which, by the way, is pretty healthy now because we haven't opened it in so long that the water actually flooded over the beach this winter and flushed a bunch of salt water in there. So that end of that pond has gotten healthy again. It's the head of Long Pond. That bridge has silted in. It's nothing more than that. I talked to Brad Chase at the state about this. He's the head of the Herring Coalition for the state. He said this is a very simple project. If it's less than 100 cubic yards, you can go to the DEP and you get a very simple permit. You don't have to go through all this rigmarole to get a permit. As far as the funding source goes, I got one for you right away. We got $4 million from Vineyard Wind for them to run a cable down Muskeget Channel. The lawyers took 25%. They took $1 million off the top. 600,000 went to Mariah Mitchell because the sky was going to be interrupted by the lights. Okay. 600,000 went to Preservation Foundation because of the historical issues of the lights. The rest went to the town and to the community foundation. So the part that went to the town used that money to fund this. I'm so sick and tired of hearing how difficult this is. I started this discussion 6-7 years ago. A guy with a backhoe could fix this in one day. You go to the DEP, get the permit for less than 100 cubic yards, dredge. It's mostly the north side of the channel. Anybody wants to go out there with me tomorrow, I'll show it to you. There's this much water. A herring can't get down the ditch. You dredge around the opening of the pond on the north side. You dredge that little bit of ditch on the right side. You can take the spoils away. You can pile them back up where they came from, which is on the north side of the bridge, right there where the stuff is just a road away from rain and wind. And the herring can get in the pond. I'm not looking for, I'm not looking to reinvent the wheel here. I don't need to raise the road 3 feet. I don't need to put new pipes in. I just want to dredge it on each side so the flow can happen. And if goddamn fish could get into the pond to spawn, it's not that difficult here. Why are we making this into I get so frustrated by this shit because this is exactly what happens with all this stuff. We study, we talk, we bullshit, and nothing ever happens. This has been 6 years. It's time for this to get done. I can go out, I feel like Steve Scannell with a shovel opening a goddamn pond here. This is ridiculous. There's got to be a way to get this done. And I'm tired of hearing about, we need to do the big plan, because the big plan is never going to happen. Not in my lifetime. I just want to see some herring get in the pond and spawn again. It's not that difficult.
Thank you, Bobby. Dawn?
I'm wondering if anyone from Natural Resources wants to address that, because if it is more simple, I want to see that same thing happen. I want to see the herring get into the pond and spawn and do what they're supposed to do. And obviously raising the road 3 feet is going to be a much, much many years out, I would think, to get to that point. And I don't think sewer is happening, probably not in my lifetime.
Jeff?
Sure. So I definitely hear what Mr. DeCosta is saying, and I'm not going to say I 100% disagree, because I definitely don't. But I think I'm happy to connect. I also have a relationship with Brad out at Marine Fisheries, and can speak to him about, the avenues that he's there. Like I said, we're providing the feedback from the overall meeting that we had. If there's a simpler solution that may be able to address the immediate concern, I'm happy to investigate and try to, keep that on track and keep that moving forward, and kind of pick up the mantle from Mr. McNeil and see where that goes, and try to get at least a short-term solution put in place relatively quickly while we're still working on kind of the longer term end. So I think we're happy from our end to kind of, take the torch and see what we can do to try to get fish into the pond. And try to make that happen relatively quickly. And it sounds like Mr. DeCosta has done a lot of legwork for us. And hopefully we can, try to bridge the gap there and alleviate the concerns of, natural heritage and U.S. Fish and Wildlife and those folks, and try to get something moving quicker.
Thank you, Jeff. Vince?
Minor concern. I was at 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, I can't remember which, I committed to making sure that groups like the Linda Loring Nature Foundation were kept involved and kept in the loop for these kind of things. They own neighboring property at the head of Long Pond. And I know that they're particularly interested in this too, to make sure that their property is not affected. So it would probably be helpful to have a group meeting with at least some of the affected property owners.
Thank you. Can we go to Rick Atherton? He has his hand up.
Jason, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Rick.
Great, thanks, Jason. I just want to second Bobby's comment. I was on the board back when he first brought this up. A simple, easy project to undertake to get to solve a problem. I think he was very gentle when he talked about the presentation this evening about kicking the can down the road. I think I saw something a little different. I saw people sort of rallying around saying, we're doing fine. Bobby, you're messing with our project. And I think that's unfortunate. I think this is something that should have been accomplished a long time ago. And Bobby, I don't need to, just chime on and support you, but absolutely that's what should have happened. And everybody has a point of view. All the neighbors do, all the regulatory agencies. But when there's a simple, clear-cut solution, I think we ought to get on with it. So thank you for listening, Jason.
Thank you, Rick. Can we go to Billy Cassidy?
I just wanted to say that myself and some friends will be happy to donate the equipment that Bobby would find necessary for accomplishing such a thing. And Bobby, watch your mouth.
Sorry about that.
Thank you, Billy. Go to Mr. Bill Greeter.
Thank you, Jason. Sort of is the continuation of the worst thing that you can ever hear, and that's, "Hi, we're from the government. We're here to help you." And so this is a continuation of. It appears to be a continuation of a reason to put something off. So if you think back, first and second bridge. We call them that, but they're really first and second culvert. The original bridges that were there, that were actual bridges, the culverts were put in as a temporary measure, and the town was going to rebuild and put bridges back and get rid of the culverts. Well, we can see where we are with that. We used to take care of the ponds and the cat nine tails and such. So it used to be at First Bridge and see Second Bridge and nothing but water and people out fishing and hunting and on boats and stuff. And we stopped maintaining, taking care of that. The boat that was used for that, the cutter and stuff, that all went away, and we're slowly losing that pond. You now see little islands out there that pretty soon there'll be a building permit for. So, absolutely, I agree with Mr. DeCosta's point. We need to take whatever steps possible to do what we can without piling on and making doable projects impossible to do. So I hope that some rethinking of this and it gets done. It was a great time growing up as a kid to be able to go out there herring with your parents or your uncles or your brothers or whatever, and just it's slowly gone away. There aren't that many people that are around here that remember doing that, and it's just one more thing that we're on the verge of losing in Nantucket. And anything we can do to eliminate losing that, I support wholeheartedly. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Bill. Can we go to Sarah Boyce?
Hi, thank you for calling on me. I'm here tonight as a representative for the Linda Loring Nature Foundation. We are currently the largest or majority landowner around the north head of Long Pond. And so we would just, I don't have any specific answers, more just that we'd like to be part of the conversation moving forward with any amendments or changes to that area, because any changes to the water flow will definitely affect our property, and we want to work with the town. We don't, it's open space, and we can be part of a mitigation strategy for some of the water that might come in. We have seen that the north head of Long Pond is very silted in. It's pretty shallow throughout the majority of it, of that north head piece. And we just thought that we could also be a partner potentially collecting more information, more data before or after any amendments. So we want to, we kind of want a seat at the table. And we want to make sure that anything that's done is done with the, kind of most up-to-date available scientific data, working with natural heritage, working with the Natural Resources Department to make sure we're not making any changes for one species or one point in time that we remember. We want to make the best decisions moving forward for the whole ecology of the system. So, thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Any other thoughts from the board?
I guess the question, do we need a motion to try to have this, have this moved along? What's the, or should we wait for Jeff to come back? I'll make a motion that this be explored and that we talk about it again and update us again soon. And that the goal is to have this done by next spring. That's a motion.
It's a motion. Is there, we can second it and have discussion. Okay. Bobby?
I just want to say, Jason, that I would be more than happy to work with any group, the town, Sarah. I know they own the property around the pond. I'm not looking to do anything adverse here. I just want to be able to make that pond make that bridge what it used to be. Bill Greta was absolutely right. When I was a kid, there were 3 wooden bridges, not culverts. And I remember probably in the early 80s when they changed it to culverts. And that time they said, this is a temporary fix because the bridges were so weak that they couldn't support the heavy trucks. And they said, okay, we're going to put these in and the bridges are going to go back, very much like Massasoit Bridge or the bridge going to Smith's Point. They were wooden bridges like that. Well, the bridges never went back, but that's that one culvert there. The second bridge, I've walked the whole ditch from Cambridge Street from the boatyard all the way to Second Bridge. There's not an issue there. There's really not an issue in the pond. It's just that little section at First Bridge. And it's mostly from from runoff from the road. It's taken all the silt or all the soil from that side of the bank down into the ditch. And the water is literally this deep. So I saw it today. I watched a heron come down the road and try to get up in there, and he couldn't. I mean, it's so shallow at low tide, they can't get in there. So I think that we could do this. As Brad Chase told me, 100 cubic yards or less. It's an easy permit, as the way he explained it through the DEP. I think that the Linda Lauren Foundation will look at it and go, look, this is better for the pond, the head of the pond. I think we could all work together and get this done. And, you know, I don't think it will cost a lot of money. And then we can deal with the bigger project later on. But this, if we could get this done in the next year before next spring, when the heron come into the pond to spawn, I'd be ecstatic. And I'll be willing to sit on any committee or work with anyone to get this done. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Any other comments from the board on that motion? Libby or Erica, do you need any other clarity or direction on this? Okay. Do we want to pick a time? We want to pick 4 weeks, 2 weeks, just so they come back and.
No,
give us an
as soon
update?
as we're able to check whether it can be done. I mean, I think a month, you guys can schedule it.
And Matt, your motion is more dedicated or concerned on like the under 100 cubic feet, something that is
Under 100 cubic,
easiest possible.
Yep, do it, put the application in. If people are donating the equipment, then what do we need to what else do we need? If this has to be a committee together, put a committee together and you know, and come back relatively soon.
Okay.
That would be that was what I would hope would happen.
Jeff has his hand up.
Oh, sorry, Jeff, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think if you'd like to put it back on in a month, I think we can have a pretty clear scope of work and timeline put together by then to have an idea of when the project that Mr. Descosta described this evening should be doable.
Okay, we'll find a time in May that works for the silver sheet.
Certainly.
And my
And
other
we'll
thought
connect
is, sorry, Jeff, go.
I was gonna say, and we'll connect with Linda Loring and those folks to get them involved as well.
And if it really is a day, if the equipment is being offered and it really is a day, you know, maybe there's volunteers that will donate it to the town and we'll get this done. I mean, that's how we built Delta Fields was, you know, volunteers and donations. So, you know, maybe this could be done.
Okay. Ready for a motion? Okay. All those in favor by roll call. Don?
Aye.
Christie?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Jason, aye. Passes 4-0. Erica, should I?
No. I didn't know if you knew that Melissa had left
Yep,
the
I
meeting,
did.
so I don't
Just
think we
us.
need roll call anymore. Just FYI,
Oh, that's correct. Yep.
but thank you.
Yep. 4-0. That passes. Any other comments before we move on? Okay. Thank you, Bobby. Thank you, Billy, for keeping Bobby in check there. Appreciate that. All right, Libby, natural resources.
Thais?
Yes, thank you. Just make sure this gets on full screen first. All right, good evening, everyone. Today, I just want to talk about our 2021 water resource report. This is from our sampling season that was taken last year from June until September. Next slide, please. While you're on it, I guess you can scroll down. We'll scroll down. So I'll focus on the harbors and the slide is fine. Maticat and Nantucket Harbor are the two largest areas that I do sample. And this is just a table, and I'll go through the titles that just kind of puts it in line, more organized than our graphs are a little bit confusing to interpret. But the top titles include the embayment, the total maximum daily load, which is our nitrogen levels for us to meet our water quality and good habitat, the status, the trend, whether it's improving or if it's declining, trophic health score, which is also based on a number of key ecological parameters that that include water quality, such as chlorophyll, dissolved oxygen, and that is a scale that we use to measure the health of the habitat and the water quality, as well as remedial actions that have been existing or that we plan to do. So for Nantucket Harbor and Maticat Harbor, they are on a trend of improvement and meeting on the trend to meet its total maximum daily load. However, I will say that although we are on that trend, which is a good thing, it's really important to be proactive with water quality instead of reactive, because once we hit that level of being reactive, it's quite expensive and it's difficult to reverse. So I'll get into some graphs and data because we're not meeting the total maximum daily load at all of our stations. So that's important to keep in mind. You can keep on scrolling down, thank you. This is just to give you an area of the watershed for Nantucket Harbor. I do have 12 sites that I sample in this embayment. They're really small to see, but there's little blue pluses just so you get an idea of where we're sampling in the harbor. And you can keep on scrolling, thank you. I showed this picture last year, and this is just to highlight our eelgrass. The legend is pretty difficult to see, it's quite small. So the green is the 1995 eelgrass that was present, and the purple is the 2020 eelgrass. So you can see that there has been a little bit of decline, about 30% eelgrass loss. This is due to a number of factors. It's a combination of excessive nutrients that we see from fertilizer, pesticides that are mobilized into the water. We also are having an issue of our waters warming, and that is something that is happening worldwide, as well as coastal development, which causes a lot of erosion and sediment that has the potential to cover the eelgrass beds. So there's a lot of different reasons why we might be seeing this kind of decline in eelgrass. I also wanted to highlight that this has been a concern in particular for scallopers, as scallops utilize eelgrass as a habitat during their early life stages to escape from predators. And eelgrass is also very important in improving water quality in general, as it provides oxygen to the water, as well as stabilizing soil. So it's a really important submerged aquatic vegetation to have. But in light of the low abundances that we have seen in scallops, that is due, again, to a combination of factors. A lot of people point to water quality or eelgrass, which does have an impact. So it's absolutely true that does have an impact on its aquatic organisms, and scallops being one of them. I will say that we had 50% less commercial licenses this year. And the people that we did have, a lot of them did stop fishing by November or December, as well as many of them also stopped during probably like noon or 1 p.m. And this is in conversations with the shellfish warden, as well as our shellfish biologist. So that also influences the data that we're receiving when we're getting our bushel counts. So I did want to at least highlight that in addition to water quality and eelgrass loss, which is very important, there are other factors that are going into what we're seeing for a decline in our scallop population. You can continue to the next slide. This is when it gets a little bit confusing. I know there's several different lines, but just to orient you to this graph, on the x-axis is our sampling sites. So we have 12 of them. And then on the y-axis is the total nitrogen concentration in milligrams per liter. There's a lot of lines going on. I just wanted to highlight that what you're seeing here, if the first half of the graph is above that purple line, and that is our total maximum daily load for Nantucket Harbor, which is for nitrogen in particular. So the stations that you're seeing, I have a picture on the right, those stations are in the head of the harbor, and those are the ones that are exceeding that level. You can continue to move to the next slide. So moving on to Maticat Harbor, this also includes Long Pond as well, includes the whole watershed. I do have red dots in here to kind of highlight what we're testing here. So Maticat Harbor, we have 4 testing points, with 1 being in Hither Creek. And then Long Pond, you can see the 2 sites that we test for there. You can move to the next slide, please. This is similar to the first picture I showed for Nantucket Harbor. This is our Maticat eelgrass. Again, the green is indicating 1995, and then the purple is indicating the eelgrass that was present in 2020. So you can see actually some growth, which is quite impressive, at least in Maticat Harbor. Because of the open area, we do, the water quality is a bit better than in Nantucket Harbor. And that could also be a reason for that we're seeing an increase of eelgrass. Next slide, please. This is another graph that is similar with a lot of lines and arrows, but this includes Maticat Harbor, and it does include Long Pond because it is included in that watershed. And obviously, Long Pond is tidally influenced by Maticat Harbor through the ditch that is connected to Hither Creek. The green line that you see, that is our total maximum daily load for Long Pond. And then the purple is the total maximum daily load for Maticat Harbor. And what I wanted everyone to take away from this picture here is in 2021, that the arrow is kind of indicated by the red arrow. They use 2 blue lines here, which is kind of difficult to discern. But there, the yellow line was from 2020. And then that blue line where that red arrow is from 2021. So we had almost double the increase in total nitrogen in Long Pond area. And so again, although they are trends that are heading towards our total maximum daily load, which is a good thing, each year is variable, and we do have spikes in nitrogen from year to year. So it is really important, again, to be proactive about what's going into our water bodies, management plans that we can do. The ponds are more susceptible to influences of nitrogen and phosphorus as well than the harbors, because I obviously don't have a lot of flushing, aside from our pond openings that we do for 2 of our ponds, Hummock and Sacajah. And so these are really susceptible to fertilizer, septic systems, runoff from the roads, et cetera, that are influencing our nitrogen chens and other nutrients into our ponds. Next slide, please. So I touched on Long Pond, but I will talk about Maticat, Hummock, and Sacajah, which are the remainder of the great ponds that the town tests for. Move to the next slide, please. So I'm sure all of you are familiar where these are located, but for those of you who are not, these are just the map just indicating the 4 great ponds that we do test for. You can move to the next slide. This is another table just to hopefully make it a little bit clear of what ponds are improving on their trend and some that are variable and unchanged. Again, Hummock Pond and Maticat Pond are doing the worst for water quality. Again, we proposed several different projects, which I'll talk about towards the end of the presentation, that the town is working on, and some existing projects that we're working on as well. Long Pond and Sacajah Pond are on a moderate improvement and approaching its goal. Again, like I said, between years, sometimes we're seeing these spikes, especially in 2021. We did see an increase in total nitrogen in several of our water quality stations that we do monitor in comparison to 2020. And that could be linked to a lot of different things. It could be the increase of use that happened in 2021, as well as our population increase with summer tourists as well. So that could obviously affect the numbers that we're seeing here in 2021. Move to the next slide, please. So I wanted to touch on our existing water quality projects because the town does do a lot of efforts to restore water quality, and we do work with a lot of organizations that also are trying to restore water quality and be proactive. One of them includes our HAB monitoring program. This is extremely important for human health and the safety of our citizens, as well as our animals, as HABs are harmful algal blooms can be very dangerous, and they have the ability to produce toxins that can be fatal to pets and can be extremely detrimental to human health. And so we partner with 7 organizations on island. And then we do we monitor from June, and sometimes depending on the season, if it's warm, we have gone up until October to monitor these blooms weekly. We also have a website on the town, as well as signs that are up near the ponds where our monitoring stations are. And we monitor 16 ponds collectively as a whole. And citizens are able to scan a QR code and report harmful algal blooms if they're out walking. So it actually helps us know what's going on, and we can go out and sample and do counts of these potentially toxic producing algae. Another project that goes hand in hand with that is our Adopt a Pond program that actually brings citizen scientists into helping us monitor for HABs. So people, if you live on a pond or if there's a pond that you visit frequently, you can actually help us by agreeing to monitor as well. These are visual inspections. If they see something, they can report it through the QR code form and fill it out, and that gets sent directly to me, and I can go further inspect and collect samples. Another project that was released in 2021 is our water quality analysis and visualization tool. I've also provided websites on the last slide, but this was a tool that you can go on, click on any of the water quality stations that you saw this evening, select a parameter, you could say temperature, for instance, and it will graph the data that we have years for. So this was something that was put out last year, which really puts the onus on individuals to go out. They can graph their own data. They're not waiting on people to get answers, and they can actually find out what's going on with their water quality. So that's something that is currently on our website. It saved me a lot of time with pointing individuals to utilize it, as well as myself with graphing, and it explains all of our water quality parameters too, so people can understand what's going on and they don't feel like we're using these complex terms that they can't understand. Speaking of eelgrass, this is a project that we started last year with the Land Council. We're continuing it this year as well. This was in addition to helping them transplant eelgrass to promote the growth that is in our harbors. We are trying out different methods and utilizing some of our tank spaces at the hatchery to help improve restoration efforts for eelgrass. So that is a project that's continuing on for this year as well. We completed our water resource management plan draft that includes the complete plan for all of the water bodies that we monitor on island with management suggestions. So that is completed and done as well. We're also updating the Nantucket and Maticat Harbor Action Plan in the fiscal year, this year, 2022. Also integration with the Coastal Resiliency Plan and Hazard Mitigation Plan, and our illicit discharge regulations are in progress. So these are some of our existing projects. And the last slide, I'll just talk about some of the new and future water quality projects. We do have a Nantucket Harbor Watershed groundwater study with the Great Harbor Yacht Club Foundation. This is included in the fiscal year 23 capital request. This was last updated in 1993, so this would be extremely important to find the nutrients that are in the groundwater that are entering into our harbor watershed. So this is a exciting study that's on the books. Also, dredging of Maticat Pond, that has been, the design has been included in the fiscal year 23 capital request. Maticat Pond is experiencing our worst water quality out of all the great ponds, and a lot of it is due to nutrient-laden sediment, so internal loading of nutrients. So we can do what we can for the external load that's coming into our ponds through stormwater, fertilizer, pesticides. But sometimes we need to do something more aggressive if it's latent in the sediment. A fun project that I'm really excited to start on is some of our bioretention projects. So we're currently going to make a bioswale, which is a vegetated swale, sort of like a rain garden out by Sacajah Pond. And this is to help mitigate the flooding that we see in part of the area over there, as well as filter stormwater and the nutrients before going into our pond. So these gardens per se will serve as kind of like a buffer zone as a first step before water ends up into the pond, and that will actually help improve water quality. So that's really exciting project that is happening this year, as well as a similar project behind sales with the Great Harbor Yacht Club Foundation that is in the works. There was an existing bioretention area there that has kind of been not as maintained throughout the years, that we are trying to revive and revisit and make that a functioning bioretention area that will also improve water quality, as the storm water that is coming off the roads will filter into that area first before then going into the harbor. We are expanding the Adopt a Pond program for citizens to actually include some water quality sampling. And this goes hand in hand with the next bullet point that I wanted to mention, is that we are recipients of a flow cam from the Great Harbor Yacht Club Foundation. And this is a cytometer, which you can put in a little vial of water, and within minutes, it will identify and count the different types of algae that are in your water body. So that saves us a lot of time. We can process more samples and let us know which ones are the toxin producing species, so which ones are of our concern, because not all of them produce toxins, but the ones that do, it's good to monitor and notify the public for safety reasons. This also helps expedite the counting of our shellfish larvae. A lot of this is done through a microscope and a slide, and you are counting through different cells, and it does take quite a bit of time. So having this piece of equipment is great for our harmful algal bloom program, as well as for the hatchery itself. The last two projects I'll briefly touch on. We're also placing out some pond mats, which are basic benthic barriers. You just place them down underneath the water over the grass. And since it blocks out sunlight, this will actually kill some of the grass that is becoming a nuisance out in Sacajah Pond. Specifically, there is widgeon grass along, the majority of the pond, but has now since been reaching the tops of the water and serving as an area for harmful algal blooms to congregate on, and also serving as a swimmer safety issue. So this is a pilot project that we're going to test out along the beach side, so we can try to do a natural form of mitigating this nuisance vegetation in that area. We're also working with the Land Council and Conservation Foundation for an alum treatment at the head of Hummock Pond, as that area does experience a lot of algal blooms. And so this is a treatment that will help mitigate that, because it's getting to a point where, again, there's only so much that we can do, that we actually have to be a little more aggressive in trying to improve our water quality and keep our public safe as well. So there are a lot of projects that the town are working on to improve water quality. We continue to do this. Again, I did want to stress, although we are meeting, at least on a trend towards meeting our goals for water quality for at least the harbors. Again, it's really, we still have a lot of work to do, and there are a lot of lag effects that we see in water quality too. So it could be looking good, and then we'll start to see a decline. So we are seeing a decline in eelgrass, and that's usually an indication that something isn't going as right. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions that the public or the board has. And thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you, Thais. It was a great report. Any questions or comments?
I will ask that the last slide just be shown if people are interested in the website for our water quality and the water quality visualization tool. Thank you, Eric. And my email as well. Oh, you can scroll back up. That's extra information if anyone wanted, but the questions, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, just a comment, I think, a couple things. I'm glad to see bioretention getting the maintenance. Those, we put those in and probably my first go around 20 years ago, and they require maintenance. You have to dig the stuff out and get the pollutants out. So, they need to be on a schedule and cleaned. It's kind of like storm drains. You need to replace the pillows and do the stuff you need to do. That's number one. And number two, and I don't think she meant this, but sort of the comment on the fishermen, if the scallopers were getting scallops, they'd still be there. They'd still be out there. I think I had a lot of guys send me pictures of sort of what's going on out there, and it's kind of nasty. And so, I don't think it's I don't think it's a question of them. I don't think it's a question of they weren't fishing, they were taking time. It was a question of it's very difficult out there. Bobby can answer. Yeah, exactly. If they were fishing, if they were scallops, they'd be doing it. So, I think that, anyway, so those are my two.
Thank you, Matt. Anybody else? Oh, Bobby, then Emily.
I have a question and comment. My question was, I see that we test water quite substantially throughout the entire harbor. And I don't know if you all are aware, but because of a DEP regulation now, we can't take quahogs out of the harbor from Jetties Beach or from what we call the horse shed, which is straight across from Brand Point. So basically, if you drew a line from First Point across to Monomoy, the the west side of the harbor, you can't take shellfish, which for years we grew little necks and put them into the horse shed for family people to go and clams. So there's tons of clams in there now that technically we can't take. And it's a kind of I understand why the DEP did what they did, but it doesn't really make sense because they basically said if there's 20 or more boats moored in an area, then obviously they must be pumping their holding tanks overboard. So no one's allowed to shellfish in there. So they just made a blanket rule for the whole coast, and that's what we have to deal with. But because we test so much in our waters, is there any way that we can use the fact that we monitor this and we don't have any of these contaminants in our harbor to maybe get these shellfish beds open to recreational shell fishermen again? Because it's a shame to have all these beautiful quahogs and little necks in there and nobody can take them. That's my question. The comment was one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about getting Long Pond cleaned up and opened, especially the head of Long Pond, for the heron to get in there, is the heron come in the pond in April and May to spawn, but they don't leave. They stay into late July because I used to catch them for bait back when we could catch them right up into August. And a heron is a filter feeder, so they feed on algae. So the more heron you get into the head of that pond and in the pond to spawn, the cleaner the pond's going to be. I mean, one of the things that I've noticed in the harbor in the last few years is we've had a large abundance of menhaden or bunker again, which we never saw for 20 years, but they've started to come back, and they are also filter feeders. And the last few years, we haven't had the rust tide in the harbor like we have, but we've had big schools of bunker. I personally think that's got something to do with it. I'm not a scientist, but after 40 years on the water, I kind of feel like I have a little bit of an idea what goes on. So, the more filter feeders we can get into our estuaries, into the harbors, the better it is for the environment. Thanks.
Thank you, Bobby. Jeff or Thais, do you want to take that?
Sure.
First question.
I'll answer his first question. That is true. This data can be used and it's going to be used. We are, our shellfish biologist, Tara, is currently working on several different recommendations and that we're proposing to meet with the Division of Marine Fisheries to discuss how we can kind of work around that new regulation that was put on with stuff that the Natural Resources department is going to do. So that's something that's still in the works, but we've refined it. We've met with several people already to discuss this. So it is on our radar, and we are actively working on recommendations. I will say that for our department, we do not test for fecal coliforms, which is what the Division of Marine Fisheries is looking at. They're looking at that fecal bacteria. However, the data that we do collect is still useful as it indicates other water quality parameters that will be of use to them. So hopefully that answers your question, Mr. DaCosta, or Jeff, you can add in on that if you'd like.
Jeff, go ahead.
Yeah, just to add in a little update and elaboration on what Thais was just talking about. Tara has been working a lot with the harbor master in compiling all of the data that we have for pump outs, for boats moored in these areas, demonstrating that they're boats that don't have heads, or what policies and procedures are in place, from securing heads to potential dye tablets, really anything to get that open. I think our real big push is to sit down with both the DMF and the genesis of this rule actually comes through the Food and Drug Administration, and say, Nantucket's taking really important steps to make sure that we're not going to have these issues in the areas that we want to see people be able to shellfish, like the horse shed and some of those other areas, and really do that. So we've spent the last year getting all of that data together, pulling it all there, making some adoptions to some changes to procedures, and have just recently got all of that back in front of them. So hopefully they'll go back to us and say, you guys are doing really great things. We really appreciate it. And we think we can at least, change the status closure on that area to be maybe even a conditionally improved, where there still may be some limits on it, but that they can at least revisit and have some flexibility from their initial ruling. We're hopeful that that's the case.
Thank you, Jeff. Great information. Emily?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's nice to see everyone again. Emily Molden for the Nantucket Land Council. Thanks, first of all, to Thais and Jeff. The Natural Resources Department definitely does a phenomenal job managing all the ongoing monitoring of the conditions of our great ponds, as well as relative to the TMDLs for our harbors and estuaries. The concern that I wanted to raise tonight was in light of all of the discussion and dialogue this past winter around the state of our harbor, Nantucket Harbor in particular, and the fertilizer regulations, that that program isn't part of this discussion more. I think that the report that was provided certainly mentions the regulations, but I don't know that fertilizer is really even listed as a remedial action for any of the ponds or our estuaries. And I have spoken to Jeff and Thais about some of these concerns, and I absolutely appreciate Thais adding some of these elements into the presentation and the report to all of you. I certainly recognize that she has about 20 or 30 minutes tops to provide you with all this information on all the work that they're doing. But I think that the town needs to spend more time talking about this. The nitrogen levels, at least in the water column in parts of Nantucket Harbor, are improving, and that's a very good thing. But it doesn't change the fact that the ecosystem itself continues to be in a serious state of decline. The eelgrass has not been recovering, the scallops have been disappearing, and the macroalgae that we see shading and smothering the eelgrass is only increasing. The presence of that macroalgae in such high densities is indicative in and of itself of high nutrient levels in the water column. And it could be that one of the reasons that we're seeing less nutrients in the water column is because the macroalgae is taking so much of it up for its own growth and is then smothering the eelgrass. I was trying to think a little bit of a metaphor for this situation. And the one that came to me yesterday was that if there's someone standing in front of you who is choking on a piece of food and can't breathe, and you measure their blood oxygen level and it's at 99% saturation, you're not going to sit back and say, well, they're clearly getting enough oxygen, so they'll be fine. And that may not be a perfect example, but it feels like maybe it's not too far off. So I think that we're just starting to see that the improving nitrogen levels just may not be a sufficient indicator for harbor health. And The town has a really important tool already at its disposal, which is our fertilizer regulations. And they're good regulations. I think that there's a lot of potential for them to provide more improvement in our water quality. But one of the things that came up in all the discussions this winter around the proposed fertilizer ban was hearing from the town departments that as they exist right now, they can't be implemented and enforced effectively or appropriately. But I don't think we've engaged in much public dialogue on why that is or what we can do to change that and improve it. So I'm really here today to ask the select board to put the fertilizer program and licensing program on an upcoming agenda to talk about that and to maybe get a report from the town departments on why that is, what can be done. Fertilizer season is upon us again. How many landscapers have come in to renew their licenses? How many have not? What kind of education and outreach is being done? What kind of enforcement and inspection is planned for the upcoming season? What resources do they need? Do they have those resources, et cetera? The ongoing monitoring is incredibly important. All of the restoration projects and initiatives that all of our organizations are working with the town on are incredibly important. But we have this tool in effect right now that I don't think we're making the most of. And I would really like to see some more discussion on what we can do now to improve that. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Any other comments or questions from the board? Okay, thank you again, Thais, for a great presentation. I agree with Emily. It's hard to put everything that you do in natural resources in 20 minutes. So thank you. Okay. Select board comments, committee reports.
I just have one.
Yep.
So this past summer, a couple of us went over to the vineyard to see how they have their island housing trust, their land trust. We went with members of the land bank, some town officials, and over the last several months, I've had a small steering committee to evaluate how this could work on Nantucket. And so today was our final kind of steering committee meeting where we came up with the name Nantucket Community Housing Trust and moving forward with developing a 501c3 to institute something similar on the island for Nantucket Island that's similar to the vineyard. And you can look these up. They're all across the United States where the community land trust holds the land, purchases the land and does a long-term lease, and then an individual can purchase the house. And that's one of the biggest issues on Nantucket is the land value. So I'm really excited to see this program move forward and hopefully make a little dent in the affordable housing crisis, as we've seen this week, several closures of restaurants and institutions on the island, citing housing and workforce as issues. So hopefully this program will roll out and help some of those issues for our business and our community.
Thank you, Christy. Matt, anything? No, Don? Only thing I have is we met with the commissioners, select board members from the vineyard on Monday. I think that was Monday. And everybody kind of gave their 2 cents on the steamship for the steamship legislation that Dylan Fernandez put in. And it was a good meeting. It was good to hear the vineyard in their opinions, very similar to ours. And it was more, one of the themes that came out was it was not necessarily the content, although some did not like the content, but it was more the process. And then but in Dylan Fernandez's liaisons, I won't say shot back, but they, had some, they stood their ground and said why they did it. And so I thought it was a good dialogue. And then something else that came out of it was us trying to either quarterly or at least twice a year get with the vineyard and talk about housing and talk about whether it's steamship legislation or whatever it is. I think we can learn a lot from each other, and then maybe even one day get the boats running back again from the vineyard to the Nantucket, back and forth. That's all I had. Anything else? Motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. Sure.